We say fight back!
Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's there's just it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great. And we still have a $60,000 match from Mike in San Francisco. We sucked up $12,000 of it yesterday, and thank you if you called in yesterday for that. But there's a lot of it left. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Let's keep this network going. Let's keep this show on the air. Let's keep everything working here on Free Speech TV. It really, I keep saying this, I don't think I can say it enough. It's a really critical time in America. It's a really critical time for American media. And frankly, the importance of progressive media. So I don't know if you saw the recent article by Jane Mayer in the New Yorker about how Fox News and the Republican Party and the Trump machine are all like this. I mean, they're just like that. They've got these three outliers, Bret Baier, Chris Wallace, and Shep Smith, who occasionally just do straight news. But even then, the topics that they'll do straight news about are tightly constrained by this Foxosphere, by Rupert Murdoch. The guy that former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd called a cancer on democracy. That Rupert Murdoch, runs this company with an iron fist and says, it's like, they knew, for example, that Trump had an affair with a porn star and paid her off to cover it up. And they knew this at the same time that WikiLeaks was releasing Hillary's emails. And what did Fox choose to talk about? Well, they never once met. I mean, last week it broke that Fox knew this story, buried it, and then when the woman who had the reporter at Fox who had found this out, when she dug a little deeper and found out that not only had Fox buried the story, but so had the National Enquirer, that they were both engaged in catch and kill, she was demoted and eventually quit, and or was fired, whatever. And, I mean, this is just how Fox rolls. It's a propaganda machine run by a billionaire. There is nothing like that on the left side of the dial. Nothing. Even the so-called left-wing, cable TV network, MSNBC, is full of Republicans and right-wing Democrats. Where else are you going to find a genuinely progressive message? I know of no place. And yet, if you're looking for a hardcore right-wing message, they've got 5 different television networks now running on digital platforms, like Glenn Beck's network, and I'm forgetting the names of all of them. Julio is on a couple of them, and as well as Fox News on all the cable systems. It's mind-boggling, and they're all funded by right-wing billionaires who are promoting this because they want their taxes cut, they want their companies deregulated so they can spew more poison into our air and water and thus make more profit and continue to screw their workers by keeping out unions and keeping the minimum wage low. It's crazy. We've got to support Free Speech TV. You have to support Free Speech TV. Please. This network literally does not exist if you don't call 877-378-8669 and make a contribution. Even if it's $10 a month for the next whatever it may be, it's all up to you, whatever amount. With a $20 gift, though, we've got a new bumper sticker. It's just started a couple days ago. It's called Jesus Was a Socialist. And they're flying off the shelves, as they say. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV sticker pack, a collection of kind of cool stickers. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which will be out in June. We're hoping we can get them shipped to you in May. No promises, but June for sure. And with an autographed book plate in them. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. With a $200 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, you get all of the above. With a $500 gift, we're putting together an online webinar about dealing with anxiety and trauma. With a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the third hour of the program and watch the show being done right here in our humble little studio. And I'll take you to lunch afterwards. And typically we get 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 or 10 people together. And so you'll have an opportunity as well to meet a few other Free Speech TV viewers, which is always it's actually really interesting. Fascinating dynamics. So anyhow, those are the premiums, but the premiums are, they're the icing on the cake, the real cake, as it were. I mean, the substance of all this is calling 877-378-8669 and saying, yes, I want to help Free Speech TV continue to be a strong and viable part of the American media landscape. I can tell you, I am on a bunch of big radio stations. I'm on, our shows on YouTube and Facebook Live and all these other places. And yet, a substantial portion of our calls, at least a third of our calls, are coming in from Free Speech TV viewers. And we've got a very large measured audience over on the radio side that's in the millions. So Free Speech TV is doing really good. I mean, we are catching an audience with this network. And we need to, and especially in the red states, where people don't have access to cable TV, and so they're on Dish and Direct, and Dish and Direct are the principal carriages. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Your donation will be doubled up to $60,000. Please call now. Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. Remember that, by the way, it's Anything Goes Friday. Whatever you'd like to talk about, the lines are open, 202-808-9925. Remember the African-American Democratic member of Congress who was busted with stacks of $100 bills wrapped up in tinfoil, frozen in his freezer? The compartment above, his refrigerator. Remember the police went in there and it was all over television and, oh my God, look at this corruption. This guy was taking money under the table and he was a Democrat. And he was sentenced to 13 years in prison because his judge, Judge T.S. Eliot, said, quote, public corruption is a cancer. That would be the same T.S. Eliot judge sentencing a black politician to 13 years in prison, who yesterday said that the white, corrupt, businessman and politician maker on multiple continents, including, some of the worst tyrants on earth, Paul Manafort, lived an otherwise blameless life. T.S. Eliot, the judge, a Reagan appointee. Surprise, surprise. And this is the kind of judges, they are, right now, Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump are and Mike Pence are shoveling these people in their 30s with, in many cases, no trial experience, no judicial experience. In some of them haven't even tried cases, like Brett Kavanaugh, shoveling them onto the federal bench. It's nuts. The Democrats passed H.R. 1. Congressman Pocan was on our program yesterday talking about it. H.R. 1 is the major government reform, ethics reform bill. Clean up elections, protect voting rights, strengthen ethics laws, and limit dark money in politics. And guess what? Not one Republican voted for it. Not even one Republican was willing to go on record and say, I am opposed to corruption in government. Not one. And then when they had their, hey, okay, let's condemn anti-Semitism, let's also condemn anti-Islamic, whatever the word is for that, trash talking, hate speech. Say what, Nate? Islamophobia. Islamophobia, yeah. But I think it goes beyond phobia. I wouldn't, I would say anti-Semitism is, an active hatred. Well, maybe, I don't know. Anyhow, we lack a word for it, and we need one. But as soon as they added Islam to it, nearly 30 Republicans in the House of Representatives said, oh, we can't vote for that. We've got to keep hating on those Muslims. Holy cow. I mean, the Republican Party is explicitly, clearly, unambiguously, loudly showing and telling us who they are and what they're really all about. You heard about how Robert Hatch, Robert Kraft, the billionaire owner of the New England Patriots, sitting at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump at dinner with Shinzo Abe and a whole lot of other venues. I mean, the guy's a billionaire, and Trump sucks up to other billionaires when they'll pay attention to him. He desperately wants the approval of his class. Robert Kraft got busted for having sex in a massage parlor down in Florida, apparently twice on video. It had been wired by the government, by the state, I believe it was the state police in Florida. And turns out that the woman who owned that massage parlor, she had since sold it, but she owns a chain of them and she still owns other ones, these Asian massage parlors that are apparently frequently used for human trafficking. She was having dinner with Trump, too. She's a member of Mar-a-Lago. She hangs out with Trump and Kraft, and he goes to her massage parlors and gets laid. And somehow all this, it seems like if Bill Clinton had done any of this when he was in the White House, or if his friends had done any of this, oh, my God. Can you imagine? I mean, it's just absolutely insane what's going on. And then there was this great tweet by a defense lawyer. In fact, I started following him this morning on Twitter, who was pointing out, I'm trying to find the story here, who was pointing out that he has defended clients who got much, much longer sentences than Manafort did for much, much smaller crimes. Yeah, here it is, Scott Heckinger. He says, for context on Manafort's 47 months in prison, my client yesterday was offered 36 to 72 months in prison for stealing $100 worth of quarters from a residential laundry room. And then it's Scott, H-E-C-H, at Scott Heck is his Twitter handle. And he then starts this thread where he goes through a list of all of his other clients, or many of his other clients in the past, who for, essentially trivial and nonviolent crimes got much longer prison sentences than Paul Manafort got. Well, again, I say, it's, what do you expect? It's a Reagan-appointed judge who was basically taking the position of the defense during the trial, as you'll recall. He slapped down the prosecution on in a number of cases. We've got a problem with our judiciary, and I'm telling you, it's going to get a hell of a lot bigger as time goes on. But anyhow, it's Anything Goes Friday, so let's get right to your calls, although I've got a bunch of stories here. I get to do Anything Goes Friday, too. I pull out stories that I might not have done otherwise during the week, and I've got about 30 of them that I'm going to share with you throughout the week. We just went through 3 or 4 of them. Damon in Las Vegas. Hey, Damon, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I just wanted to, wow, it was the first call. That's crazy. I just wanted to thank you for you're doing a good fight. Now, I believe we can stop the invasion, Venezuela if we just keep telling them it's all about the oil. And I just wanted your thoughts on this. And Tulsi 2020. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard is doing a good job of raising this issue, and I wish more Democrats would. I agree with you that in Venezuela it's all about the oil. As Greg Palast on this program pointed out this week, there is more oil under Venezuela than anywhere else on Earth. So, gee, what a surprise.
And you need to bring up that they have the 4th largest gold reserves, and they have a lot of diamond mines, too.
Oh, I didn't know about the diamond mines. So,
yeah,
it's a twofer. It's South Africa plus Saudi Arabia.
And also, you need to also bring up, when you talk about this, that Russia and China have invested deeply in them, and they all both pledged to fight for their interests.
Yeah,
so
well, that could get
just a little,
That could get very, very messy. Damon, spot on. Thank you very much for the call. This is a real issue, one that we need to pay attention to. I believe that Donald Trump wants a war with Venezuela or possibly with Iran. I think he's realizing a war with Iran could be very, very dangerous, particularly with as many troops, American troops, as we have in that region and the military base that we have in Qatar. I think it's sunk into him finally. So he's like, oh, well, let's have a war someplace else. And I think Venezuela is the place on his radar screen. Matt, listening to AM 910 out of San Francisco in Napa, California. Hey, Matt, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. As usual, it's a little bit offbeat from the regular conversation.
Good. That's what Fridays are for.
Okay, good. So mostly about Wikipedia, but it also draws on the kind of broader narrative of, where we really find truth and expertise and what, expertise is buried in vested interest and that whole endless chain of confusion, basically. But anyway, on Wikipedia, especially in terms of health issues and holistic health issues, I don't know if you're familiar with Gary Null, somewhat controversial figure, but certainly been around a long time and done a lot of good stuff. If maybe he's been off on a couple issues possibly, but anyway,
but mostly he makes his living hustling vitamins and books. Yeah.
Okay, but he gives a lot of good information out, regardless of how he makes his money, in my opinion, at least. So he's been doing him and a group of other researchers have been doing an expose on Wikipedia. And I think it's even pretty clear to the common person that, if you look at the articles on holistic health, it's generally Stephen Barrett from Quackwatch that's referenced over and over again. He has no, I think he's got a degree in psychiatry or something. He doesn't really have any credentials to be way above anybody else, and that one person is quoted all the time. And anyway, what Knowles seems to be finding out is that, it is a closed system, basically. The reputation of Wikipedia is that it's open for editing by a large group of people, and it's done in sort of an open source fashion. And anyway, so he's launching some lawsuits against them because. Well,
that's great. I should talk with Gary. I've been complaining for years on this program about the right-wing bias on much of Wikipedia, particularly the history stuff. I mean, you read about FDR, you read about the New Deal, you read about the Great Society, you read about the accomplishments of progressives over the years. You read about the Great Depression and how it happened and what caused it and what exacerbated it. Every one of those topics, Wikipedia has heavily skewed toward right and libertarian policies. Some of the exposés of libertarianism, just like that it was created originally by the fee, a real estate industry marketing group as a front for their lobbying efforts and things like that. Absent as far as I recall. I've told the story of walking. This was 15 years ago. Walking into a right-wing think tank in Washington D.C. I was getting a tour, and there's this whole room full of desks with scrubbed face, fresh face young interns sitting there at computers where the vast majority of them were on Wikipedia, and they weren't reading; they were editing. And this is just, Wikipedia has a problem with, right-wing bias. I mean, and apparently corporate bias as well, from what you're saying, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. And even Snoops or Snopes, I'm not quite sure how you say that. Everybody seems to look to them as a big objective opinion place. And from what I understand, it's just a pair of a couple in the San Fernando Valley that again has.
Yeah, it started that way. They've gotten so popular now, and I think they're putting advertising on their site. They're generating money. They've hired some people. They actually did an investigative report recently. I'm not ready to discount Snopes. Even though they've called me out in the past, when they called me out, the one time they called me out, they were actually right. So, Snopes is not, in my mind, a concern. Wikipedia is, and I hope they get it together, because I really like Wikipedia. But I'm finding, as I'm writing these books, that I just have to stay away from it as a source of information on anything from guns to voting to monopolies, which are the topics of the 3 books I've been writing over the last 2 years. Matt, thanks for the call.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Particularly guns and monopoly. Well, and voting, too. Well, voting, Wikipedia had a pretty good summary, but some of the other stuff, wow. And welcome back. Wayne in Jacksonville, Illinois, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Wayne, what's on your mind today?
Well, a little sloganeering and maybe some bumper sticker ideas.
Mm-hmm.
The main one goes back to, it's probably been a couple of years ago, I remember hearing you call out the old corporate welfare queens myth that Reagan perpetrated. Or the welfare queens.
You mean the black welfare queens myth? The corporate welfare queens is not a myth.
Yeah, that's
there's not a billionaire in this country who didn't get there in part by gaming the system.
Your evidence that the black welfare queen was a fiction was the fact that they could never produce or name.
No, the New York Times spent 8 years looking for her. She doesn't exist.
Okay, but. If we adopt the term corporate welfare queens, I think that we can give names and faces to a multitude of them.
Yep.
And
although I'm ambivalent about the word queen, it has multiple meanings.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It flashes you back to Reagan's old racist message as well.
Yeah, we do need a noun there after corporate welfare, though.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what it would be, but
thieves, corporate welfare.
The main thing is that we can take
I don't know
their old Reagan rhetoric and jam it right back down their throats, I would think. And since that occurred to me, I heard Paul Jay at Real News Network use the term climate change denier enablers, referring to corporate Democrats, mostly, I think.
Who, I thought the Democratic Party was pretty united. Of course, Joe Manchin in West Virginia, well, I'm not even sure Joe Manchin is denying climate change. I think the Democratic Party is pretty united on that issue. Joe just doesn't think that they should do,
The term wasn't corporate deniers, but it was enablers.
Yeah.
Implying that the corporate Democrats are dragging their feet on the issue when we...
Yeah. Well, with regard to the Green New Deal, that may be the case. I get that.
What's that?
With regard to the Green New Deal, you've got Democrats who are actually trashing the Green New Deal resolution, which is a problem, in my opinion. So if that's what he's talking about, I get it.
And with shining a light in that direction, we can frame the whole Green New Deal as something of an intervention and rehab for corporate welfare thieves. Since you could point to the root of the problem as some kind of hoarding disorder or addiction to money or something like that. And by the way, have you seen on the People's, I forget the name of the website now, but it's a little low rent think tank that has revealed that I would have had the idea that the Tennessee Valley Authority was as extinct as the WPA.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still the largest publicly owned
utility in the country, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, because they built all those dams, and those dams are still there. I mean, generating electricity.
Anyway, it's the People's Policy Project. .org, and they have a piece about how the TVA could be the heart of a jumpstart for the Green New Deal. It's
Interesting. I'll have to check it out. Thank you for that. Heads up on that, Wayne. I appreciate it. And thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Anything Goes Friday on the Thom Hartmann Program. Gary in Missouri, it says here you want to disagree with me. What's up?
I was just wondering if you were still equating that kid in Washington with the MAGA hat for the pro-life to a racist.
I don't know that I would equate him to being a racist, but I think he was an ass.
Okay, I would agree with that. I've just been trying to call and ask you about that because, I mean, that kid knows nothing else but what he's been taught, and he was there for pro-life.
Yeah, I get all that. You know, I get all that. And I disagree with his politics on that, but I respect his right to participate in them. But his standing in front of a Native American elder who was trying to move forward and preventing him from moving, and, you know, with that blank-eating grin on his face.
Did you go watch the whole video?
Yes, actually.
Yeah? Okay.
And I continue to think that kid was an ass, for lack of a better word. Or, you know, behaving poorly. I mean, it's just my personal opinion, and I realize, you know, he's now you know, engaging in lawsuits and stuff and saying that he's been defamed and whatnot. You know, what can you say?
Well, I mean, for the full video, no more than anybody else out there that gets involved in political. You know,
but if you wanted to stop the conflict between two sides. You don't stand in front of an elder who is trying to move through. I continue to feel the same way I did before, but that's merely my opinion. John in El Prado, New Mexico. Hey, John, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. We're spending a lot of time talking about Ilhan Omar and her supposed anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, we have the evangelical Christians out there who believe that the Jews must convert or die, which is what's more anti-Semitic than that?
Yeah, and they raise money for Israel, and they go to Israel, and they visit Israel, and they're all about Israel. And the subtext of the story, which is well known to Israelis, by the way. I have a number of friends who live in Israel, and you know, spent a lot of time in that country over the years. And they look at these evangelical Christians and frankly just kind of, you know, either shake their heads sadly or laugh at them. These evangelical Christians have interpreted Revelation, and this comes out of a late 1800s. I'm forgetting the guy's name. I knew it years ago. This guy who basically came up with the whole rapture theory. This literally, in any significant way, didn't exist before the 1800s, and came up with this theory based on his read of Revelation that, you know, what's going to happen in the last days is after Jerusalem becomes made the capital of Israel, then there will be this situation where all but 144,000 Jews in Israel will be destroyed, and those 144,000 will convert to Christianity, and then Jesus will return to earth. And, you know, everybody in Israel knows this story. It's not a secret. And I agree with you. It's a huge con. And these, I'm not sure I'd call it anti-Semitic, but it's something weird. Back to you, John.
Whoa, wait. Must convert or die is not anti-Semitic? That's an existential threat to Judaism.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose you're right. I suppose you're right. I don't think, though, there is associated with that a generalized hatred of Jewish people, like there is, you know, among the neo-Nazis on the right. So it's perhaps, though, it's a distinction without a difference. I'm not going to argue that one. John, thank you for the call, and thanks for listening to us on TuneIn via KTNF or vice versa. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program, occupying the media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, right here. And we still have a $60,000 match from Mike in San Francisco. We sucked up $12,000 of it yesterday, and thank you if you called in yesterday for that. But there's a lot of it left. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Let's keep this network going. Let's keep this show on the air. Let's keep everything working here on Free Speech TV. It really, I keep saying this, I don't think I can say it enough. It's a really critical time in America. It's a really critical time for American media. And frankly, the importance of progressive media. So I don't know if you saw the recent article by Jane Mayer in the New Yorker about how Fox News and the Republican Party and the Trump machine are all like this. I mean, they're just like that. They've got these three outliers, Bret Baier, Chris Wallace, and Shep Smith, who occasionally just do straight news. But even then, the topics that they'll do straight news about are tightly constrained by this Foxosphere, by Rupert Murdoch, the guy that former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd called a cancer on democracy. That Rupert Murdoch, runs this company with an iron fist and says, it's like, they knew, for example, that Trump had an affair with a porn star and paid her off to cover it up. And they knew this at the same time that WikiLeaks was releasing Hillary's emails. And what did Fox choose to talk about? Well, they never once met. I mean, last week it broke that Fox knew this story, buried it. And then when the woman who had the reporter at Fox who had found this out, when she dug a little deeper and found out that not only had Fox buried the story, but so had the National Enquirer, that they were both engaged in catch and kill, she was demoted and eventually quit, and or was fired, whatever. And I mean, this is just how Fox rolls. It's a propaganda machine run by a billionaire. There is nothing like that on the left side of the dial. Nothing. Even the so-called left-wing, cable TV network, MSNBC, is full of Republicans and right-wing Democrats. Where else are you going to find a genuinely progressive message? I know of no place. And yet, if you're looking for a hardcore right-wing message, they've got 5 different television networks now running on digital platforms, like Glenn Beck's network, and I'm forgetting the names of all of them. Julio is on a couple of them, and as well as Fox News on all the cable systems. It's mind-boggling. And they're all funded by right-wing billionaires who are promoting this because they want their taxes cut, they want their companies deregulated so they can spew more poison into our air and water and thus make more profit and continue to screw their workers by keeping out unions and keeping the minimum wage low. It's crazy. We've got to support Free Speech TV. You have to support Free Speech TV. Please. This network literally does not exist if you don't call 877-378-8669 and make a contribution. Even if it's $10 a month for the next whatever it may be, it's all up to you, whatever amount. With a $20 gift, though, we've got a new bumper sticker. It's just started a couple days ago. It's called Jesus Was a Socialist. And they're flying off the shelves, as they say. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV sticker pack, a collection of kind of cool stickers. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which will be out in June. We're hoping we can get them shipped to you in May. No promises, but June for sure. And with an autographed bookplate in them. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. With a $200 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, you get all of the above. With a $500 gift, we're putting together an online webinar about dealing with anxiety and trauma. With a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the third hour of the program and watch the show being done right here in our humble little studio. And I'll take you to lunch afterwards. And typically we get 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 or 10 people together And so you'll have an opportunity as well to meet a few other Free Speech TV viewers, which is always it's actually really interesting. It's fascinating dynamics. So anyhow, those are the premiums, but the premiums are, they're the icing on the cake, the real cake, as it were. I mean, the substance of all this is calling 877-378-8669 and saying, yes, I want to help Free Speech TV continue to be a strong and viable part of the American media landscape. I can tell you, I am on a bunch of big radio stations. I'm on, our shows on YouTube and Facebook Live and all these other places. And yet, a substantial portion of our calls, at least a third of our calls, are coming in from Free Speech TV viewers. And we've got a very large measured audience over on the radio side that's in the millions. So Free Speech TV is doing really good. I mean, we are catching an audience with this network. And we need to, and especially in the red states, where people don't have access to cable TV, and so they're on Dish and Direct, and Dish and Direct are the principal carriages. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Your donation will be doubled up to $60,000. Please call now.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and thanks to the folks on Twitter who pointed out to me that it's Judge T.S. Ellis, not Eliot. I confuse him with the poet who is one of my favorites. We are the hollow men, we are the strong, whatever. So Judge T.S. Ellis. And apparently he also, not only did he throw the book at Congressman Jefferson, the African-American congressman who had $100,000 in ill-gotten gains. Manafort had tens of millions. Not only did he throw the book at him with a 60-month sentence, but apparently Eric Prince came before him and he dismissed the charges. Yeah. Wendell in New Kensington, Pennsylvania. Hey, Wendell, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I read this on Yahoo News yesterday. The Texas governor put Republican judges back on the bench after they lost their elections to Democrats. What good elections do if they can override the voters and talk about voter fraud all the time?
Wait, is Greg Abbott still the governor of Texas? Was that Greg Abbott? Yeah. So are you saying that he overturned an election, or he appointed a judge to fill an empty position?
No, the judges that were Republicans got voted off, because down there judges got every 4 to 6 years have to run for their office.
Right.
Well, every one of them just about got voted out, and he turns around and puts them back on the bench, and the Democrats didn't get nothing out of it.
Does he? But I'm guessing he put them back on benches to which he can appoint judges, as opposed to the ones that they lost the elections in. Those. Well,
it didn't say that on that.
Yeah. I don't see how he could have done it any other way. Putting them back on the bench in positions that are appointed positions, and there probably are quite a few of them in Texas. Yeah. That would make sense. It would be partisan, but it wouldn't be illegal. So
yeah, because the Democrats are complaining fraud, and I'm saying, and then they say, well, they're always talking about voter fraud until it's in their favor.
Wendell, if you can find a link on that story, or something about it, tweet it to me. I do read my Twitter feed throughout the show. During the breaks, I read my Twitter feed.
I tried to find it today, and I couldn't find it.
Okay, well, see if you can track it down, because I really don't like, and I don't mean this in a slapping your hand kind of way, but I am concerned when we talk on the program about things that are factual, as if they're factual, when neither one of us have the backup information. Neither one of us can cite a source. So, see if you can track it down, tweet it to me, and I'll retweet it, and I'll talk about it on the air. Wendell, thank you for the call. Mike in Chicago. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hi, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I was thinking of putting a different spin on this socialism issue. Mm-hmm. But just a quick aside, last week someone called about Costco and pharmacies. Mm-hmm. In some states, Costco has to sell to non-members. So basically all they do is call their Costco pharmacy to see if they are part of that.
So Costco will allow non-members to use their pharmacy in those states that regulate pharmacies in a way that say that basically they have to be available to the public no matter what, presumably.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I get it. Thank you for that clarification. But that's not what you called about. You called about the Constitution and socialism?
Yes, I did.
Go for it, Mike.
Now, okay. What I'm going to state is I'm going to show that socialism is part of our government's DNA, and first by doing that, let's define socialism in the context of this discussion that's been going on for the past couple of weeks.
Sure.
Essentially, socialism is a program created and supported by the people to benefit the people, right?
I would go with that definition. I mean, but I think we also need to define capitalism. I caught a little bit of Morning Joe this morning, and they were interviewing Governor Hickenlooper, of Colorado, who has come out and said he's going to run for political office for president. And he started a brewery in Denver, and then leveraged that to mayor and then to governor. And so he's a wealthy guy, a self-made businessman. And Donnie Deutsch and Joe, what's his name, Morning Joe, were all over this thing about how he's a capitalist. This guy's a capitalist. And they tried to get him to say that he was a capitalist. He wouldn't say it. He was saying basically he was engaged in free enterprise. I don't think most people even understand the definition of the word capitalist. Hickenlooper was not a capitalist. He was engaged in free enterprise. He was an entrepreneur. But a capitalist is a person who lives off capital. It's a person who lives off their investments. And that's not Hickenlooper. I mean, maybe it is now in his retirement, but that's not how he was a businessman. And, so the word capitalist is just as misunderstood as the word socialist. Forgive the aside, Mike, but it just was making me crazy when, Donnie Deutsch and Joe are sitting there going, well, I don't know why you won't even say he's a capitalist. Well, maybe he's not a capitalist. Maybe he doesn't live off his capital. Anyhow, back to you, Mike.
Okay, well, you went off on a different side because I thought the typical rebuttal to the definition of socialism, or what socialism is that they would say, but it's still a government-run program, which brings me to my point.
Okay.
Our government was created and is supported by we the people, and it was done so to benefit the people it serves.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's our Constitution is essentially a socialist document. Everything was created to serve the people. The people serve the government, and that government serves the people.
No, the people actually control the government, and the government serves the people. Yes, and I completely agree with you. That is a socialist concept.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's what the if you're debating with a conservative, that's what they need to know, because if you're going to ask them who does the government serve,
right?
What other answer can they give?
Yeah. I mean, tragically, I'd say right now that the government is serving, fat cats and corporations more than anybody else. But we can lay that at the feet of our Supreme Court, and that has very little to do with the founders' original intent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that's what I'm saying, though. The socialism is part of our DNA in our Constitution. So it's not something that we should run away from.
Amen. Amen. Well said, Mike. Thanks a lot for the call. Mark in Mercer Island, Washington. Hey, Mark, what's on your mind today?
Yeah. Hi, Tom. I'm a doctor that lives in Seattle, Washington, but I had most of my career with the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, where I was actually responsible for introduction of hepatitis B vaccine globally.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard some remarks you made. I've heard it twice now. I love you, and I agree with you politically, but when you make anti-vaccine remarks, it really bothers me because I actually do know the data. And especially I heard you the other day make a remark that aluminum-based adjuvants were responsible for diseases, and I assume you're talking about autoimmune disease and
that's correct.
Maybe neurologic diseases. And
no, I would say autoimmune. I would say that I, from what I've read, and I've done, I don't present myself as either a physician or a scientist here, but I can read, and also look at the trend lines, and particularly when you look at the epidemiological trend lines, the explosion of allergies and things like that. The people who are highly allergic to lots and lots of things. The only explanation for that, unless you can come up with a better one, Mark, is that people are being given things that juice their immune system in large quantities in childhood. We're up to 40 vaccines now by the time you're 18 recommended, and when I was a kid it was 6. And every single one of those vaccines contains alum or aluminum, which causes the immune system to go into hyperdrive. And I don't think you can dispute any of that as accurate. What you're disputing, I'm guessing, is my drawing the conclusion that because we're aggressively stimulating young people's immune system 10, 20, 30, 40 times during the course of their life, that may be the thing that is driving the explosion of not even specifically autoimmune disorders, allergies is what I was talking about.
Okay. Well, let me give you an alternative hypothesis.
Sure.
But before I do, let me just say that there have been dozens of really good studies, and I'm familiar with those studies, and I would actually challenge you at some point, because I think this is important enough, is one day when you're in Seattle is to come over to my house.
Just tweet the information to me, Mark, and I'll respond to it.
Okay.
I'd love to see it.
So here's an alternative hypothesis as to why there's an explosion of allergies and those sorts of diseases.
Right.
And that is that we live in an environment that's too clean. If you actually look at people who grow up in farms, the percentage of them that get asthma and allergies is a tiny fraction of the percentage.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the hygiene hypothesis, and it even extends to pets. People who grow up with pets are less likely to have allergies when they're older.
Okay, but the point,
and I don't disagree with that. But how do you explain the fact, or how do you respond to what I believe to be the fact? And again, if I'm wrong, if you can find evidence that I'm wrong, please correct me. That several of the vaccines that we manufacture in the United States, at some point in their manufacturing process, they use peanut oil as an excipient early on, right? So there's very, very little of it left in the final vaccine, virtually undistinguishable, but still traces. In Israel, they do the same thing, only they use sesame oil. The peanut allergies in the United States have exploded in the last 3 decades. In Israel, there's no explosion of peanut allergy, but there's an explosion of sesame allergy.
Yeah, I don't know that particular data, but I do know that when people are actually exposed to tens of thousands of antigens as they grow up and even throughout their whole life.
But if they're exposed to a particular antigen at the same time that their immune system has been jacked, wouldn't you expect them to have then basically you're altering the expression of those genes that regulate that part of the immune system?
I think that the problem with your argument is that when you say the immune system is jacked, what happens is when you inject an aluminum adjuvant with a vaccine is that in a very tiny local area, the immune system is, quote, jacked, and cells come in to your arm or to your thigh or wherever the injection is given. And locally, there's a, quote, jacked, unquote, immune system.
How does that not go systemic? I mean, it's a water-soluble form of aluminum.
The immune system systemically is not affected highly by vaccines. You can get a little bit of fever in some people and some side effects that last usually less than 24 hours in some people. Most people get local soreness and redness, or if they get any reaction at all. And so the idea that the antigenic stimulus that you get from vaccines is very different from the stimulus that you get from thousands of other antigens from insects and inhaled pollens and food.
But those are at we're exposed to those continuously, and
but I mean, we can talk about the hypotheses that you think maybe.
My question, Mark, and maybe you can answer this if you work for the CDC. Why is it necessary to add the aluminum? I mean, I got a flu shot this year that has no aluminum in it, has no alum, it had no adjuvant. And that's the vaccine, and it has twice as much killed virus in it. And that's the vaccine that they're now recommending for people over 65 because they think that adjuvant is going to jack their immune system systemically in a way that produces, too much of a response. And
that's not the reason why.
Okay, what's the reason why?
These new influenza vaccines for elderly people are used. As a matter of fact, the problem with giving vaccines to older people is that their immune systems don't work as well, and so you actually need to use more antigen or a stronger adjuvant to get
no, there is more. There is more antigen. There's twice as much, killed virus, but there's no aluminum at all.
Aluminum's been used for more than 70 years, and most of the vaccines that are not live virus vaccines, that is, vaccines that use killed viruses or killed bacteria, or subunit vaccines like hepatitis B or.
Mark, I'm sorry, we're out of time. This is a break I can't control. It's a hard break. Let's make it clear, Mark, neither of us are opposed to the use of vaccines, and kids should be vaccinated.
Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archive.
Let's just make that very, very clear. I'm not an anti-vaxxer at all. Mark, thank you for the call. We'll be back. And welcome back. Randall in Oceanside, California, watching us on Free Speech TV. What's up, Randall?
Well, Tom, how you doing today?
I'm great. What's up with you?
Good to hear. Good to hear. Anyway, the DNC deciding not to do a debate on Fox News, I think is a really, really, really major mistake. It's the only way they're going to reach an audience that they wouldn't normally reach. Their people, when they ask the questions, are going to have to wait and listen for an answer instead of yelling them off the stage. I think that they're missing a big, big, big opportunity.
You may well be right, Randall. You may well be right. And they do have 3 people over at Fox News who are who play the role of real news people and typically actually tell the news. I agree. If you don't.
And
if Democrats can't deal with gotcha questions, then that's our problem, not theirs. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. On the other hand, why feed Fox anything? Why not? If Fox viewers have any interest, now in fact, I think I'm probably making your argument here. But if Fox viewers want to see the Democratic primary, it'll be real interesting if they have to go to MSNBC or CNN to watch that, because then they may stick around for the commentary, which would be very different than the commentary on Fox. But on the other hand, Fox will have that commentary anyway, and the Democrats are not going to make it go away.
Questions are questions, answers are answers. Get these people up on their game and put them on the stage.
Yeah. I don't have a good. I was pleased when they first made that announcement, but I think that your perspective is actually more solid than mine. Randall, thanks. I'm changing my mind. Thank you very much. Mike in Lomita, California, listening on KPFK. Hey, Mike, what's up?
And spin is spin, and a lot of debates are claimed to have been won by the spin afterwards.
You're right.
Anyway, I'm calling up to denounce the fraud called daylight saving time. When the clocks go forward Sunday morning by an hour for most of us in the U.S., we will not be changing the amount of sunlight that we receive. We'll just be changing our
when we experience it, So here's the question, Mike, and in fact, Sean was suggesting today we do a poll on this, and perhaps next week or the week. Actually, next week would be perfect, Monday or Tuesday, because then it's in people's faces. If we were to abolish daylight savings time, would you want to stay on DST or would you want to stay on standard time?
Standard time, of course.
So
daylight saving time or changing, by an hour is like retouching your X-ray to make yourself feel better.
No, I get all that, and I am totally with you and completely opposed to our shifting an hour twice a year. It causes accidents. It causes it literally causes people to die. They can measure that. So I'm opposed to it as well. In addition to the inconvenience and everything else. But, you know, and I agree with you. I would rather see standard time be the new standard. But there are some folks who suggest daylight savings time should be the new standard. And it seems to break down to morning people versus evening people.
Well, I don't see what it matters. I mean, you're claiming 15 degrees of longitude difference instantaneously. I don't see how that improves anything.
Well, one way you get earlier mornings, and the other way you get later evenings, if I'm saying it right.
Do the same thing.
Yeah. Mike, I got to run, but thank you for the call, and thanks for listening to KPFK. We'll be right back. Stick around. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Denise in Chicago. Hey, Denise, what's on your mind today? Denise, listening on iTunes? Hello?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I had it on mute while I was waiting.
That's easy to do. Yep. What's up?
Yeah. Well, I really liked your show and the conversation about pundits and, you know, the people that come on and they seem to pop up from nowhere and have these really influential statements that they want to make. But I agree with everything you said. And I just wanted to add that, you know, I don't know who they are. I don't know what qualifies them to be on there, you know, to talk and be an expert. And it seems to have been gravitating more to opinions instead of statements of facts and true analysis. And one of the things that just has been bubbling up more often, and I don't want to bash anybody because, you know, they say good things and they say not so good things, or things I agree with and things I don't agree with. But, you know, meet the press, and I know, you know, meet the Republicans and Chuck Todd, you know, sometimes I think he's brilliant, and just lately he has been interjecting hyperbole and sensationalism that is off the charts, and it's not based on any fact. And what he did was his statement of using that the Democrats were, I'm trying to go to the word that he used, that we were all up in arms about what we're going to do about prosecuting or handling the amount of crimes and what that takes, and that it was separating our party. Well, in my opinion, I think that's nothing further than the truth, and I don't know what he bases those facts on.
Chuck Todd is a reliable repeater of Republican talking points. I mean, that's just you know.
Yeah, but I was so disappointed because David Axelrod has turned into a pundit, and I don't know, you probably saw his Twitter statement earlier this week about, you know, that we're just going to contribute to the witch hunt. No, 81, I wish it was 501, you know? I mean, we have to be aggressive. You know, I think that the crimes that are going to, you know, stick are going to be the ones that bubble up to the top, you know what I mean? And the rest will be for the years to come. So I just wanted to, you know, categorically say that the Democrats are not in disarray over this. And someone wants to speak to it, you know, you just don't make up stuff. You know?
Yeah, well, so, what you're looking at with the punditification of television, what used to be called television news, is reality TV. That's what's going on. The networks have figured out they're having to pay their hosts literally millions of dollars a year. I mean, that's anybody who's on these networks. You know, the paychecks start at the very bottom. They start at $1 million a year. And so they're looking for ways to diversify the shows and for free or for cheap. I mean, typically these pundits, if they're identified as a quote contributor or having an affiliation with a network and an exclusive agreement with a network, they get anywhere from $500 to $2,500 every time they show up on TV. If they're not, they're there for free. And you know, this is just reality TV. That's all it is. It's cheap to produce.
Well, and, you know, one other thought, and I know you've got a lot of calls today, but I just noticed I've been a big fan of Chris Matthews for a long time. And, you know, he started to get into that trap of he'd have these new young, I call them young bucks or whatever, you know, new people on the scene. And his ratings have just fallen. And now he's changing up a little bit and bringing in some a little bit more established commentary. So I
don't know. Denise, I have to confess, during the day, I don't watch network television or cable television, any kind of television. All right, and if I'm looking for the news, it would be CNN during the day anyway. Denise, thank you for the call. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
And we still have a $60,000 match from Mike in San Francisco. We sucked up $12,000 of it yesterday, and thank you if you called in yesterday for that. But there's a lot of it left. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Let's keep this network going. Let's keep this show on the air. Let's keep everything working here on Free Speech TV. It really, I keep saying this, I don't think I can say it enough. It's a really critical time in America. It's a really critical time for American media. And frankly, the importance of progressive media. So I don't know if you saw the recent article by Jane Mayer in the New Yorker about how Fox News and the Republican Party and the Trump machine are all like this. I mean, they're just like that. They've got these three outliers, Brett Baier, Chris Wallace, and Shep Smith, who occasionally just do straight news. But even then, the topics that they'll do straight news about are tightly constrained by this Foxosphere, by Rupert Murdoch, the guy that former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd called a cancer on democracy. That Rupert Murdoch, runs this company with an iron fist and says, it's like, they knew, for example, that Trump had an affair with a porn star and paid her off to cover it up. And they knew this at the same time that WikiLeaks was releasing Hillary's emails. And what did Fox choose to talk about? Well, they never once met. I mean, last week it broke that Fox knew this story, buried it. And then when the woman who had the reporter at Fox who had found this out, when she dug a little deeper and found out that not only had Fox buried the story, but so had the National Enquirer, that they were both engaged in catch and kill, she was demoted and eventually quit, and or was fired, whatever. And I mean, this is just how Fox rolls. It's a propaganda machine run by a billionaire. There is nothing like that on the left side of the dial. Nothing. Even the so-called left-wing, cable TV network, MSNBC, is full of Republicans and right-wing Democrats. Where else are you going to find a genuinely progressive message? I know of no place. And yet, if you're looking for a hardcore right-wing message, they've got 5 different television networks now running on digital platforms, like Glenn Beck's network, and I'm forgetting the names of all of them. Julio is on a couple of them. And as well as Fox News on all the cable systems. It's mind-boggling. And they're all funded by right-wing billionaires who are promoting this because they want their taxes cut, they want their companies deregulated so they can spew more poison into our air and water and thus make more profit and continue to screw their workers by keeping out unions and keeping the minimum wage low. It's crazy. We've got to support Free Speech TV. You have to support Free Speech TV. Please. This network literally does not exist if you don't call 877-378-8669 and make a contribution. Even if it's $10 a month for the next whatever it may be, it's all up to you, whatever amount. With a $20 gift, though, we've got a new bumper sticker. It's just started a couple days ago. It's called Jesus Was a Socialist. And they're flying off the shelves, as they say. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV sticker pack, a collection of kind of cool stickers. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which will be out in June. We're hoping we can get them shipped to you in May. No promises, but June for sure. And with an autographed bookplate in them. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. With a $200 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, you get all of the above. With a $500 gift, we're putting together an online webinar about dealing with anxiety and trauma. With a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the third hour of the program and watch the show being done right here in our humble little studio. And I'll take you to lunch afterwards. And typically we get 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 or 10 people together. And so you'll have an opportunity as well to meet a few other Free Speech TV viewers, which is always it's actually really interesting. Fascinating dynamics. So anyhow, those are the premiums, but the premiums are, they're the icing on the cake, the real cake, as it were. I mean, the substance of all this is calling 877-378-8669 and saying, yes, I want to help Free Speech TV continue to be a strong and viable part of the American media landscape. I can tell you, I am on a bunch of big radio stations. I'm on, our shows on YouTube and Facebook Live and all these other places. And yet, a substantial portion of our calls, at least a third of our calls, are coming in from Free Speech TV viewers. And we've got a very large measured audience over on the radio side that's in the millions. So Free Speech TV is doing really good. I mean, we are catching an audience with this network. And we need to, and especially in the red states, where people don't have access to cable TV, and so they're on Dish and Direct, and Dish and Direct are the principal carriages. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Your donation will be doubled up to $60,000. Please call now. Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's it's there. It's there for you, and it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
By Irshad Manji.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to our program. It's Anything Goes Friday, although we are taking a break here for a half hour or thereabouts to talk with Irshad Manji as our great mind today in our Conversations of the Great Minds series. Her book is Don't Label Me, an incredible conversation for divided times, and it's absolutely brilliant. We made it one of our book report books that we share little clips of during our when our commercial stations are in break. And so, Irshad, welcome to the program.
Tom, it is wonderful to be back with you. It's been a few years, so I'm glad we're catching up.
Indeed, me too. Thank you so much. So, first of all, I saw your tweet just a moment ago that you're going to come on and that you thought that Representative Omar's situation would come up. Let me just toss that to you. I'd be glad to share my thoughts on it, but you're our guest. What does all this mean to you? Maybe we should.
You know,
Maybe you should first start out by recapping very quickly for people who don't know what we're talking about. What happened?
Right. So Ilhan Omar is a freshman congresswoman from Minnesota. She is a refugee and a Somali American and a Muslim. And we should not label her just for those reasons. She is much more than that, obviously, as any human being is. That said, she is getting a ton of criticism and has been over the last couple of weeks for statements that she has made that many people believe rehash ancient ugly stereotypes about Jews. So, for example, a couple of weeks back, she said that, we should be looking into the corrupting influence of big money in politics. And she cited AIPAC, the American Israel Political Action Committee, which is a very pro-Israel lobby here in the United States. And she cited them. But she didn't cite, for example, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, and the money, it gives to politicians in order to have them vote their way, et cetera. She did that in her apology, but that was too late for many people. Another stereotype she's now accused of indulging in, she said on a panel the other day that she wants to challenge the pressure that forces people to, have dual loyalty, to be loyal to a foreign country, as she put it, namely Israel. And these stereotypes of Jews as not loyal citizens of the country they're living in, or Jews who buy influence through their money, these are all ways that Jews throughout history have been slandered. And many fear that that is the thin edge of the wedge, that will, if left unchallenged, will eventually lead to the Holocaust all over again. So that's the controversy. You've asked me what I think. Well, there's lots to think about this. One is that she no doubt has, relitigated these ugly tropes about Jews. And because she does this, what seems like repeatedly, it seems that she knows what she's doing, which is very disheartening. At the same time, she has apologized in the past, and she has, along the way, raised important questions about, what many of us feel are the corrupting influences of money in politics and so forth. So the question is, how do you deal with this? Do you simply condemn her? Or do you acknowledge that she's raising important questions and correct her about the stereotypes that, she has either intentionally or unintentionally, but at this point I do think it's intentionally put out there. Precisely because, Tom, I don't believe that it's best to label people and then react on the basis of those labels. I think that we would all do well to acknowledge the important questions that she's raising generally, and then to explain to her that you can still raise those questions without indulging in these myths about Jews. And if you think that I'm sort of soft-pedaling it or I'm treating her with kid gloves or anything like that, just know that I would have agreed with you a few years ago. I would have simply lambasted this woman. But one of the things I've learned over the years is that if all we're doing is berating instead of relating, then we're not actually going to change anybody's mind. Nobody is insulted into taking a different point of view. And so I think by congratulating her on the important questions that she has brought up, you lower the emotional defenses of her and, importantly, her supporters, so that in another round of engagement, they'll be able to hear what you now have to say about the unacceptability of, these stereotypes of Jews.
Yeah, and that's quite an analysis, and it does open a whole lot of really interesting questions for example, what other country has the equivalent of an AIPAC in the United States that has the equivalent of that kind of political influence? I don't know of any. I mean, there may be one, but to the best of my knowledge.
It may be that Saudi Arabia, because of its riches, oil riches, may be sloshing around with money on Capitol Hill. But that's hardly it's a dubious comparison, right? Nobody wants to be compared with Saudi Arabia. They're as corrupt gets. So do we hold Israel or the Israeli lobby to the same standard?
Well, and there's the other issue too, that my take on it originally was that she was criticizing some of Israel's policies and some of their outside influence in the United States, rather than criticizing Jews, and not having grown up in the United States, not being familiar with. I mean, she didn't even grow up in the West, right? Not being familiar with this whole kind of psychic whatever gestalt, and zeitgeist in which we live. That she was saying things that were unintentionally anti-Semitic or could be interpreted that way. That was my take on it. I didn't think that she was being intentionally anti-Semitic, but I may well be wrong.
At that time, I didn't think so either. But what I did say to people who, asked me what I thought was, instead of censoring her, instead of bearing down on her and telling her to just shut up, what we ought to be doing is reveling in the freedom of speech that she has, because the virtue of free speech, Tom, is that people who use it and ultimately abuse it always are compelled by their freedom of speech to push the envelope too far. And at that point, we'll know if she truly is an anti-Semite. Right. Well, back then, I don't think it would have been fair to conclude on the basis of one or two, of these statements that she was an anti-Semite. I'm frankly less convinced now. I'm more convinced that she is one, simply because she continues to make statements that, again, revive ancient myths about Jews. Yeah. And surely after the first couple of stumbles, she would have gotten a briefing from her highly educated staff about, what these stereotypes are, and to avoid them as she tries to make valid points.
Yeah, it's a good point. So you suggest, we're talking with Irshad Manji, the author of her most recent book, Don't Label Me, an incredible conversation for divided times, and it is an incredible conversation. You note that diversity can be both a polarizing issue and a unifying one. It's interesting, Louise and I were walking into work this morning, into the studio, and there was a penny on the ground, and I haven't seen a penny on the ground since I was a kid, and there was always this, it's good luck to pick up a penny. And so I picked it up, and the back, I'd never seen a penny that looked quite like that on the back, and it's just, I guess I don't get much change these days. But on the back, it was just the shield, and it said "E pluribus unum," and out of one, out of many, one. And I said, wow, they've emphasized diversity on the back of the new penny, apparently. And I thought that was kind of cool, and I was wondering when it happened and whether or not it was a political statement, and what Donald Trump would think about it. And let me toss that to you. We are going to hit a hard break in about a minute and a half here, but and we'll come back on the other side of it and continue our conversation. But let me toss that to you.
Well, first of all, I did not know that a new penny was being minted, and moreover, that it would be, promoting this is really the motto of the early American Republic: out of many, one. And as you can see, given that it was the motto for these United States, that even in the founders' time, they were celebrating a degree of diversity, but not for the sake of indulging in difference. They were acknowledging that, people from different regions, different traditions, different religions, different cultures are coming together to form one nation. And so, as Cass Sunstein, put it in this wonderful book, Why Societies Need Dissent, the framers' greatest innovation was that they relied on airing of differences. They relied on disagreement as a way to bring people together so that nobody felt unheard. That is a level of psychological intelligence that really took some special people to enact. And that was what our framers did. And if we were really living up to their legacy, we too, today, would be taking disagreement as an invitation to engagement, not as a reason or, frankly, an excuse to walk away or roll our eyes or hurl more labels at each other.
Except when that disagreement is, patently offensive. I mean, when that disagreement is say a Nazi, a neo-Nazi shouting "Jews will not replace us," how else do you respond? This is a large question, I guess,
it's a very large question, and I will say, of course, that sometimes you really do have to walk away, or if that neo-Nazi is brandishing a gun, perhaps run away. Yeah. But in my book, Don't Label Me, I actually tell the story of a white nationalist who reformed himself because he was so touched by the friendship that he was offered. And it's an extraordinary story.
Let's pick up the conversation and continue the conversation in just a moment. It's 18 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our Conversations with Great Minds segment with Irshad Manji, New York Times bestselling author of Don't Label Me.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be right back. Stick around. And welcome back. So we were talking about how to respond to people who disagree with you, and I would note that there can be a variety of different kinds of agreements. There can be disagreements that are predicated on hateful perspectives. There could be disagreements that are simply predicated on respectful and legitimate differences. There can be disagreements that are based on one or the other party believing something that isn't objectively true, but they still have the belief of it. Aren't there, and those aren't necessarily categories, they're points on a spectrum. So there's potentially an infinite number of categories. How do we know how to engage or disengage or
how do we know who's who, right?
Yeah, and what to do when?
Right, brilliant. So my simple sort of answer to that, and I'll dive more deeply into it in a second, is you don't actually know who's who until you risk conversing with them. And after a few rounds, you will know if they're coming from a place of sincerity, of genuine belief in their point of view, if they're just trying to game you. So let me give you an example that we were cut off from before the break. So you asked me, right? Surely you can't, simply convert someone out of being a white supremacist. As it turns out, in the book, in Don't Label Me, I tell the story of a young man who was a nationalist, a white nationalist. He was raised that way by his parents, and he reformed himself because for a number of years he was befriended on campus, on his college campus, by an Orthodox Jew who would invite this young man over for Friday night or Shabbat dinners. And knowing full well what this young man stood for, his Jewish friend nonetheless engaged in conversation with him, as did other people around the table. That's not to say that they allowed him to get away with, crap. Rather, it's the way they corrected him. It's what they said and how they said it that over time built trust. And because of that trust, because they didn't jump down his throat, he realized that he really, needs to be reconsidering his position. And ultimately, he did. And now he is one of the more vocal anti-racist activists in this country. So my point is that you can never write anybody off. That's not to say, Tom, that everybody under the sun deserves your time and your energy. Not at all. But here's a challenge that I'd like our listeners to think about. between now and 2020, will each of us take the time to develop just one friendship with somebody on the other side of the political aisle? Just one. And when I say friendship, I don't mean meet them for a coffee and a debate. I mean ask them questions.
Deep
listen
listening
to what they have to say. Deep listening, and listening, therefore, to understand and not to win.
Yeah.
That way, you'll glean a lot more information from them about why they value what they value and how you can reframe your arguments down the road with those values so that they can hear them.
Amen. And your book is a great guide to this. Don't Label Me as the book. Irshad Manji is the author, who is our guest in Conversations with Great Minds. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Our Conversations with Great Minds segment today. Irshad Manji is our guest. Her new book, Don't Label Me, an incredible conversation for divided times. And we've been talking about, engaging with people with whom we disagree and those sorts of things. You talk about, literally your title, Don't Label Me. And you made the comment earlier on about when we were talking about Representative Omar about, she's this, this, and this, but she's much more than that, and we really shouldn't just go with these labels. And yet, there is this biologically, apparently hardwired thing in all of us. I'm guessing you're familiar with the white rat, black rat study that came out about 2 weeks ago, maybe a month ago?
2 weeks ago? No, actually, I'm not. Tell me.
This is fascinating. They developed a little tube that was a trap that would hold a rat, and it could be opened from the outside by another rat. And so they put this trapped rat in, and the other rats would always let the rat out. So then but they'd always done it with white lab rats. So then they put a black lab rat in the tube. The white rats didn't let it out. They would have let it starve to death. So they flipped it and did it, with black rats with a white. It's the same problem. So then they raised a litter of rat pups where they swapped out some of them with the mothers so that they grew up with, white and black rats both, suckling at the same mother. And those rats saved the other rat regardless of whether it was a white rat or a black rat. And
wow.
Yeah. And so, this is happening at the level of DNA, basically. I mean, we're mammals and rats are mammals, but there's a huge spectrum between the two of us that covers, probably hundreds of millions of years of evolution. So, we only have about 2 minutes left. I'm sorry, but understanding how deeply this stuff is, the instinct to label is probably tied to a survival instinct. How do we deal with it?
Exactly. Our ancient brains needed back on the savannah to detect every little noise and to figure out instantly if that is a threat to my security. Well, we've essentially got the same brains today, though a very, very different society. So I say let's work with biology, not against it. The first thing to do, whenever you're feeling uncomfortable because of an argument that is made and you disagree with it, take a deep breath. You're slow jamming your ancient brain. You are slowing the blood rush that is going on inside of you. And only after that deep breath do you even think about responding. And the second thing to do is to remember that just as you have this ancient brain and nobody should be pouncing on you because of our biological proclivity to label, so you ought not to be pouncing on other people. We have to go first. And that means truly listening. And here's the thing. When we do that, Tom, when we truly listen, we are tapping into the most ironclad law of human psychology, which is if you want to be heard, you first need to hear. It's really that simple, but it's also obviously hard because you're triggered, biologically speaking, to, spit back. But we can control ourselves. We are not lab rats. We do have the free will to figure out, what is the best thing to do in this situation. And when in doubt, and even when not in doubt, step back and just listen. You'll be amazed how often you are listened in turn when you do that first.
Brilliant. brilliant, brilliant. Irshad Manji, the book Don't Label Me, an incredible conversation for divided times. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Tom, thank you. I look forward to speaking again.
Me too. It's been a great conversation, and thank you again. We'll be back with Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program right after this break.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
So, what's on your mind? Anything Goes Friday. Want to call and disagree with me? I'm here. I'll listen. And we still have a $60,000 match from Mike in San Francisco. We sucked up $12,000 of it yesterday, and thank you if you called in yesterday for that. But there's a lot of it left. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Let's keep this network going. Let's keep this show on the air. Let's keep everything working here on Free Speech TV. It really, I keep saying this, I don't think I can say it enough. It's a really critical time in America. It's a really critical time for American media. And frankly, the importance of progressive media. So I don't know if you saw the recent article by Jane Mayer in the New Yorker about how Fox News and the Republican Party and the Trump machine are all like this. I mean, they're just like that. They've got these three outliers, Bret Baier, Chris Wallace, and Shep Smith, who occasionally just do straight news. But even then, the topics that they'll do straight news about are tightly constrained by this Foxosphere, by Rupert Murdoch, the guy that former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd called a cancer on democracy. That Rupert Murdoch, runs this company with an iron fist and says, it's like, they knew, for example, that Trump had an affair with a porn star and paid her off to cover it up. And they knew this at the same time that WikiLeaks was releasing Hillary's emails. And what did Fox choose to talk about? Well, they never once met. I mean, last week it broke that Fox knew this story, buried it. And then when the woman who had the reporter at Fox who had found this out, when she dug a little deeper and found out that not only had Fox buried the story, but so had the National Enquirer, that they were both engaged in catch and kill, she was demoted and eventually quit, and or was fired, whatever. And I mean, this is just how Fox rolls. It's a propaganda machine run by a billionaire. There is nothing like that on the left side of the dial. Nothing. Even the so-called left-wing, cable TV network, MSNBC, is full of Republicans and right-wing Democrats. Where else are you going to find a genuinely progressive message? I know of no place. And yet, if you're looking for a hardcore right-wing message, they've got 5 different television networks now running on digital platforms, like Glenn Beck's network, and I'm forgetting the names of all of them. Julio is on a couple of them. And as well as Fox News on all the cable systems. It's mind-boggling. And they're all funded by right-wing billionaires who are promoting this because they want their taxes cut, they want their companies deregulated so they can spew more poison into our air and water and thus make more profit and continue to screw their workers by keeping out unions and keeping the minimum wage low. It's crazy. We've got to support Free Speech TV. You have to support Free Speech TV. Please. This network literally does not exist if you don't call 877-378-8669 and make a contribution. Even if it's $10 a month for the next whatever it may be, it's all up to you, whatever amount. With a $20 gift, though, we've got a new bumper sticker. It's just started a couple days ago. It's called Jesus Was a Socialist. And they're flying off the shelves, as they say. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV sticker pack, a collection of kind of cool stickers. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which will be out in June. We're hoping we can get them shipped to you in May. No promises, but June for sure. And with an autographed bookplate in them. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. With a $200 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, you get all of the above. With a $500 gift, we're putting together an online webinar about dealing with anxiety and trauma. With a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the third hour of the program and watch the show being done right here in our humble little studio. And I'll take you to lunch afterwards. And typically we get 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 or 10 people together. And so you'll have an opportunity as well to meet a few other Free Speech TV viewers, which is always it's actually really interesting. It's fascinating dynamics. So anyhow, those are the premiums, but the premiums are, they're the icing on the cake, the real cake, as it were. I mean, the substance of all this is calling 877-378-8669 and saying, yes, I want to help Free Speech TV continue to be a strong and viable part of the American media landscape. I can tell you, I am on a bunch of big radio stations. I'm on, our shows on YouTube and Facebook Live and all these other places. And yet, a substantial portion of our calls, at least a third of our calls, are coming in from Free Speech TV viewers. And we've got a very large measured audience over on the radio side that's in the millions. So Free Speech TV is doing really good. I mean, we are catching an audience with this network. And we need to, and especially in the red states where people don't have access to cable TV, and so they're on Dish and Direct, and Dish and Direct are the principal carriages. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Your donation will be doubled up to $60,000. Please call now.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just for the record, I realize my guest said that she believed that Representative Omar was intentionally spouting anti-Semitic tropes. I personally disagree with that. I just don't. I didn't think it was a particularly good venue to get into a debate with a guest, and she's as entitled to her opinion as I am to mine, I suppose. James Clark tweets, the Shield penny design came out in 2010, so it's been around for 8 years. That's kind of cool. Thank you. So that was during the Obama administration. E pluribus unum. It's great. Out of many, one. So, in fact, also the despairing middle class tweeted that too. Cool stuff. Thank you very much. Anyhow, it's Anything Goes Friday, so let's pick up your phone calls. Dave in Grafford, Texas. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind?
I experiment with bumper stickers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been about 14 years since I had a really successful one. And I have one now that people are really liking, so I just thought I'd tell you about it.
Okay.
And it's hard to argue with, no matter which side you're on, but it has a strong message, and that is greedy people suck.
Yeah. I remember either that slogan or something very much like that from the 60s, but, where occasionally you see a car with like 20 bumper stickers, that would be, that one and the kind of multi-religious symbol one, that spelled out something.
Yeah,
I think it spelled out peace or whatever.
I've seen the mean people suck before.
Yeah, actually, you're right. That's the one I've seen. So greedy
right
people suck.
now, it's a real political message that they can't argue with.
Yeah.
Greedy people suck.
Yeah, and if you wanted to make it literal, you could say greedy people suck up the wealth.
Well, that's too long for a bumper sticker in my experience, but yeah.
Yeah, I get it. That's a good one. Dave, you have a website where you sell your bumper stickers?
No, I just give them away. I've got about 100 of those if you'd like some.
That's great. Yeah, no, I'm good, but because I'm not a bumper sticker user, but I think that's great that you're doing it. Dave, thank you so much for the call and for sharing your idea with us. Paul in Lucerne, California. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Well, I don't think it's okay. Let me start over again. I think it's a good idea for the Democrats not to go on Fox, because they're just going to ask you, hey, when are you going to stop beating your wife? Questions. They're not going to be real. And then they're going to give Fox legitimacy. Fox is nothing but GOP TV, and they do not deserve legitimacy.
Well, that's the other side of the argument, and that's why I was, all in favor of the Democratic Party, saying, and particularly after Jane Mayer's piece came out last week in the New Yorker, laying out how Fox even knew about Trump's payoffs to Stormy Daniels, which are clear violations of campaign finance laws and an attempt to essentially rig an election, which is what Trump did. Had that come out, there's no doubt in my mind he would not even have won Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan by 10, 15,000 votes or whatever, or at least electoral college wise. And my argument was, and I think frankly Tom Perez's argument is, we're not going to legitimize Trump's anti-Democratic Partyism, and by going on their show. The caller was saying, but there's millions of people, and I would say probably 90% of Trump's base who watch Fox News every single day, and by having the debate on Fox, the people would catch it.
You're not going to change those people's minds. There's psychological reasons people will stick to their positions and will fight it, especially fight it hard when they're presented with facts contrary to what they believe. They get pleasure from defending their position even harder.
Yeah, you may well be right, Paul. You may well be right. I started out saying don't do it on Fox. Then the caller said, "Hey, wait a minute, you want to be in front of that audience?" And I thought, that's the reason why I go on Fox. And then you point out, but you're giving legitimacy to Fox, which is one of the reasons why for a couple of years I didn't go on Fox. And
You're a single person, though. You're not running for president.
You're correct.
So you going on Fox is a good idea. Maybe you reach somebody.
Yeah.
But for the Democratic Party to give GOPD any credibility at all is a mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And let us not forget, Fox News actually went to court to sue to make sure they can make their reporters lie for them.
Well, that wasn't Fox News. That was Fox Television, which owns TV stations, and that was the case down in Florida with Steve and I'm forgetting their names now.
They fired this lady because she was upset because they didn't run her story.
She and her husband. She was the on-air talent. He was the writer and producer. And and in fact, if you go to, I think their website is foxrgbhsuit.com if it's still there.
You can go to Fox and Friends in 2012. Okay, August 8th, 2012. They actually ran a story. Okay, you go to Media Matters and check this out. That's where I found it. That Barack Obama kidnapped the sitting Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, and threatened to kill her if Bill Clinton didn't give a good speech at the Democratic convention.
Really?
And you can go to Media Matters archive and look it up.
It doesn't get worse. I mean, you always think you've discovered the lowest of lows on Fox, and then they come up with another one. Paul, you make a compelling argument, and I've changed my mind again, and I agree with you. Let's see if somebody else can change my mind. I don't usually change my mind, but this is one of those. Anyhow, Mike in Oxford, Florida. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Well, just want to say hello. I'm impressed generally with the candidates that the Democrats have, but I'm kind of also disappointed in them in one way. I mean, I can understand the traditional thing is to have your platforms or whatever your goals to run for. But the one thing I would like to see somebody be realistic and say, I'm going to put those things on hold, but here's going to be my number one mission. When I get to be president, if I'm elected, I get to go in there and figure out just exactly what Trump has done and how much damage he's done to all the systems, like the State Department, the Justice Department, and so on. And I'm going to try, that will be my number one thing, is to fix any of those things up before I try to do anything else.
Right.
So what do you think about that? I mean,
I think that makes a hell of a lot of sense, and should actually be a campaign position, because what it does is it highlights the damage that Trump and his administration and his putting a Wheeler, a coal lobbyist, in charge of the EPA, putting an oil lobbyist in charge of our Interior Department. I mean, these things are they're crimes in my opinion, and they are. You're absolutely right, Mike, doing extraordinary damage to this country, and the Democrats should be pointing that out. Well, they are pointing it out, but this could be a unified kind of theme. Debbie in Lake Villa, Illinois. Hey, Debbie, what's on your mind today?
Hi, I called in on Wednesday about putting up moderate candidates, and I think the court decision to give Manafort a light sentence also kind of dovetails into this. that having moderate candidates kind of suppresses the vote because people can't get excited. And also when there's decisions like Manafort getting a really light sentence or Stone not getting jailed for when he broke his gag order, kind of makes you feel like your voice doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, and had any of these things, by the way, had Paul Manafort or had he been African American, apparently, before Judge T.S. Ellis, excuse me, as was Congressman Jefferson, who got 60 months, I think the results would have been very different. Excellent point, Debbie. Thank you very much for the call. Dave in Chicago. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hey, I just want to do a little rant with you about anti-Semitism. When I was a kid, and we had temple on Saturday, I went to temple, came out of the temple for Saturday school, and asked my mom, "Hey, Mom, why are we at war?" Well, she slammed her brakes on the car and looked back at me and said, "We are not at war. Israel is at war. We are Jews and we are Americans." And I just wanted to say, look, this anti-Semitism thing, AIPAC is pro-Israel, not anti-Jew, and it's two different things.
Well, nobody would think that AIPAC was anti-Jew. I mean,
but these comments about this anti-Jew statements, Jewish statements, I don't believe them. I think she was bringing a point in that AIPAC is influencing electors through money, and that it is pro-Israel, which a lot of people equate as pro-Jewish, and the two are
I think those are the points that Representative Omar was trying to make. I do think that some of the things that she tweeted and has said historically could be interpreted as being anti-Semitic, and certainly, and certainly, obviously, some people did interpret them that way and go after her. You know, Brett Stevens wrote a piece about it in the New York Times. Now, Brett used to work for AIPAC, so that kind of colors that. But, still, I'm inclined to think that she just didn't grow up with that kind of cultural understanding or perspective that, the rest of us did. And therefore, she basically made a mistake. And that she, going forward, would probably not be making that mistake and would include the NRA along with a criticism of AIPAC, for example. Out of an abundance of caution, just knowing that you've got AIPAC and its partisans, kind of waiting to pounce, essentially, particularly on somebody who's a Muslim and who has power. And it's because of their concern that perhaps that person is harboring sentiments, with the people who live in Gaza and things like that. Dave, thank you for the call. Spot on. It's okay. I think, in fact, I think it's entirely appropriate and important to be unafraid about criticizing the policy of any government, including our own. But to equate that with criticizing a people, that's a whole different thing.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Friday right after this. And welcome back. David in Oceanside, California. Watch us on Facebook Live. Hey, David, what's up?
Hi. Hi.
David, your phone is just breaking up horribly. I'm going to put you on hold. Shira, David is on line 7, and maybe you guys can figure out what's going on and you can get a cleaner signal there. Greg in Tumtum, Washington. Am I saying it right, Greg?
Yeah, Tumtum.
Hey, what's up?
Hi. Yeah, I'd like to talk about the electrification of America and the world. The other day you were talking with Julio, and it came on like he was saying stuff like, yeah, right, show me a semi that can run on battery power. Well, right now, there's a company called Nikola Motors that builds a hydrogen fuel cell that runs an electric motor, that they will be coming out in April, and they have taken orders, and they're they're backordered. They're plugged. They've got lots of them coming. Toyota and Kenworth are building their own fuel cell semi-truck. There's buses that are being run right now in California and around the world that run on fuel cells.
Is all this hydrogen, Craig?
Yes.
That's interesting. And how is the hydrogen being acquired? Just through electrolysis, electricity? Electrolysis of water?
That's in the future. Right now, most of the hydrogen is done through steam reformation, but that's changing quickly.
Yeah. And are you seeing, or is Europe seeing, and are we seeing for that matter, truck stops starting to have hydrogen refill stations?
Oh yeah. Nikola Motors is they have a huge deal with Budweiser, and they are putting up the hydrogen stations along the Budweiser routes.
Huh.
And the hydrogen stations are coming, and that's probably the biggest drawback to hydrogen right now is the infrastructure is not
Sure,
there.
it's the same with electric. Louise and I have a plug-in hybrid Toyota Prius, and it'll go about 30 miles on a charge. And we went to a nearby town, it's about 26 miles away, for dinner and to check out the town and check out an interesting restaurant there a week or so ago. And a block and a half away from the restaurant, there was an electric car charging station where I could plug my car in and recharge it. So we made the entire trip without using a drop of gasoline. And here in Oregon, most of the electricity is from the Bonneville Dam. It's very, very clean power, and that was kind of cool. But there's other places that we travel to where there isn't a charging station nearby. And I'm willing to walk 4 or 5 blocks out of my way, or maybe even 6 or 8 blocks. But, although if the weather's bad, it becomes more of a challenge. But I'm really looking forward to the day where there's just electric charging stations all over the place for cars, and apparently hydrogen at all the truck stops along those routes. That makes so much sense. And you can create hydrogen very easily by just, running a small electric current through water. It doesn't even have to be pure water.
Yeah, right now there's a company, and I don't really want to say companies that are publicly traded, but that makes hydrogen from solar panels.
Yeah,
and check out
Go ahead.
Fuel Cells Works is a great website to get up to speed on hydrogen.
Great. Okay, thank you, Greg. Yeah, I've often thought that hydrogen would be, one of those transitional, if not ultimate, fuels of the future, as it were. The Hindenburg aside. Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's there's just it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. It's, by the way, International Women's Day. Or is it International Working Women's Day? This debate has been going on here between Nate and Sean for all day here in the studio. Here I've got a publication from Vladimir Lenin on International Working Women's Day, and the Guardian International Women's Day, and So, but anyway, a tip of the hat to all the women out there, and what could I say? If you wanted to call and talk about it, go for it. It apparently started out as a socialist holiday, just like Mother's Day started out as Mother's Day for Peace. It started out as a socialist holiday. I mean, literally, the woman who wrote the poem, the Star Spangled Banner, I believe. No, America the Beautiful. She wrote one of those things. She was the founder of Women's Day, which was, also a socialist holiday. Chris in Corrales, New Mexico. Hey, Chris, what's on your mind? Thanks for listening to Sirius XM.
Thanks for taking my call. Just a quick question for you. Out here in New Mexico, I'm seeing commercials with lawyers running saying if you've used Roundup and you have cancer, get on board with our lawsuit. Right behind it, another advertisement for Roundup for sale.
Amazing.
So tell me what the deal is with that. Are these just ambulance chasers, or is this a real deal?
No, it's a real thing. There was a successful lawsuit a few months ago. It's, of course, being challenged, and I'm guessing Monsanto will take it all the way to the Supreme Court. But there was a multi-million-dollar settlement given to a man who had worked in the fields for years and years as a laborer, agricultural worker, who developed cancer, and the European Union has identified Roundup, glyphosate, the principal ingredient in Roundup, as a potential carcinogen, and I believe the state of California has as well. So this is I can't guarantee that if you sign up for one of these lawsuits, if you have a cancer that they think they can tie back to Roundup, that you will necessarily end up with a multi-million-dollar settlement. Supreme Court might blow this whole thing up, and other courts may find differently than that court did, but there is a precedent, Chris.
There is family. My brother's family on the other side had a son. His son died working in the fields, and the father that owned the farm worked in the fields. And they blatantly said it was from the chemicals they dealt with in day-to-day life, Roundup and all the fertilizers and things like that. And it's almost like, well, you drew the short straw. So too bad.
Well, have them. So the next time those lawyers run their ad on TV, write down the phone number and pass it along.
Well, thank you for your time, Tom.
Sure. And usually, by the way, Chris, these personal injury lawsuits, the lawyer only gets paid if they win. So the risk to the client, I mean, if they ask for money up front, that's a whole completely different thing. That may even be, a lawyer who's hustling you. But if they're saying, we will do this right, because I went through this with my father with mesothelioma, and, we hired a lawyer to try to sue the asbestos companies. And he got, what at the end of the day was a little over $100,000 for my dad, which was not a small amount of money for my father and mother. And my mother outlived my dad by about a decade. And it was useful to have that money. So, and the lawyer basically, cost nothing. And then when the settlement happened, I think he took half or something, maybe a little less than half. So that's how it works. So good luck, Chris. Good talking to you. David in Oceanside, California. Hey, David, what's up?
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Good.
I have something to say about climate change. And, at first this is going to make you want to say, wait, but just let me finish. I don't believe in climate change or that humans are causing it. What I know is that over the last several decades, we've been taking core samples in the ice sheets in Antarctica and Greenland, and looking through the layers, we've been able to go back about 1 million years and see that the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere have had a natural fluctuation of between about 200 and 250 parts per million. Now, in the last 200 years, we've been able to directly sample the atmosphere and see that in the last 200 years, it's gone from about 250 to, I think we're right at about 400 parts per million now. And in that same last 200 years, we've been digging and pumping this stuff out of the ground. It's been buried under the ground for hundreds and hundreds of millions of years and burning trillions and trillions of tons of it into the atmosphere. So I don't believe it. I've seen the evidence, and the evidence is very compelling that,
So is what you're challenging, just to get this clear, and because we've only got 40 seconds until we hit the end of the hour here, David, is what you're challenging the word believe, that I should simply say, instead of saying I believe in climate change, I should simply say climate change is a fact. It's not even something you believe in or don't believe in.
It's a fact, and we should understand
it's a measurable, observable fact.
Right. And my point about this is that there are a lot of people who do believe it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of what I call technological snake oil out there. People wanting to push essentially perpetual motion machines.
Yeah.
I'm an engineer. I understand that this doesn't work. And I believe in alternative energy sources. I think we should explore them, but I think people have to be careful that there's a lot of hucksters out there selling stuff that is unrealistic.
Yeah, and on the other hand, there's a lot of stuff out there that's extraordinarily realistic that's being continually minimized and diminished by the fossil fuel billionaires and the oil barons.
Solar cells on my roof.
Yeah, exactly. Case in point. And I talk about what's going on in Germany with conservative on this program, and oh well, we're not Germany, thank God, right? Really, what is it? Anyhow, David, thank you for the call. Yeah, it's an excellent point. Rather than saying I believe in climate change, just say this isn't an issue of belief; it's observable fact.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
And we still have a $60,000 match from Mike in San Francisco. We sucked up $12,000 of it yesterday, and thank you if you called in yesterday for that. But there's a lot of it left. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Let's keep this network going. Let's keep this show on the air. Let's keep everything working here on Free Speech TV. It really, I keep saying this, I don't think I can say it enough. It's a really critical time in America. It's a really critical time for American media. And frankly, the importance of progressive media. So I don't know if you saw the recent article by Jane Mayer in the New Yorker about how Fox News and the Republican Party and the Trump machine are all like this. I mean, they're just like that. They've got these three outliers, Bret Baier, Chris Wallace, and Shep Smith, who occasionally just do straight news. But even then, the topics that they'll do straight news about are tightly constrained by this Foxosphere, by Rupert Murdoch, the guy that former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd called a cancer on democracy. That Rupert Murdoch, runs this company with an iron fist and says, it's like, they knew, for example, that Trump had an affair with a porn star and paid her off to cover it up. And they knew this at the same time that WikiLeaks was releasing Hillary's emails. And what did Fox choose to talk about? Well, they never once met. I mean, last week it broke that Fox knew this story, buried it. And then when the woman who had the reporter at Fox who had found this out, when she dug a little deeper and found out that not only had Fox buried the story, but so had the National Enquirer, that they were both engaged in catch and kill, she was demoted and eventually quit, and or was fired, whatever. And I mean, this is just how Fox rolls. It's a propaganda machine run by a billionaire. There is nothing like that on the left side of the dial. Nothing. Even the so-called left-wing, cable TV network, MSNBC, is full of Republicans and right-wing Democrats. Where else are you going to find a genuinely progressive message? I know of no place. And yet, if you're looking for a hardcore right-wing message, they've got 5 different television networks now running on digital platforms, like Glenn Beck's network, and I'm forgetting the names of all of them. Julio is on a couple of them. And as well as Fox News on all the cable systems. It's mind-boggling. And they're all funded by right-wing billionaires who are promoting this because they want their taxes cut, they want their companies deregulated so they can spew more poison into our air and water and thus make more profit and continue to screw their workers by keeping out unions and keeping the minimum wage low. It's crazy. We've got to support Free Speech TV. You have to support Free Speech TV. Please. This network literally does not exist if you don't call 877-378-8669 and make a contribution. Even if it's $10 a month for the next whatever it may be, it's all up to you, whatever amount. With a $20 gift, though, we've got a new bumper sticker. It's just started a couple days ago. It's called Jesus Was a Socialist. And they're flying off the shelves, as they say. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV sticker pack, a collection of kind of cool stickers. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which will be out in June. We're hoping we can get them shipped to you in May. Well, no promises, but June for sure. And with an autographed book plate in them. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. With a $200 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, you get all of the above. With a $500 gift, we're putting together an online webinar about dealing with anxiety and trauma. With a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the third hour of the program and watch the show being done right here in our humble little studio. And I'll take you to lunch afterwards. And typically we get 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 or 10 people together. And so you'll have an opportunity as well to meet a few other Free Speech TV viewers, which is always it's actually really interesting. Fascinating dynamics. So anyhow, those are the premiums, but the premiums are, they're the icing on the cake, the real cake, as it were. I mean, the substance of all this is calling 877-378-8669 and saying, yes, I want to help Free Speech TV continue to be a strong and viable part of the American media landscape. I can tell you, I am on a bunch of big radio stations. I'm on, our shows on YouTube and Facebook Live and all these other places. And yet, a substantial portion of our calls, at least a third of our calls, are coming in from Free Speech TV viewers. And we've got a very large measured audience over on the radio side that's in the millions. So Free Speech TV is doing really good. I mean, we are catching an audience with this network. And we need to, and especially in the red states where people don't have access to cable TV, and so they're on Dish and Direct, and Dish and Direct are the principal carriages. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Your donation will be doubled up to $60,000. Please call now. Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. It's Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program, and we've been talking about a lot of topics as they were, but basically it's your show in this hour on this International Wednesday. So Jeff in San Francisco. Hey Jeff, thanks for listening to AM 910 out there. What's up?
Well, anything goes. I drive down the coast from San Francisco to Santa Cruz every day, and there's all this farmland, and we have, used to have land grant colleges.
We still have them.
Why can't we invest in new technology for our farming, such as there's so many things you can make out of industrial hemp, from hempcrete. My son goes to San Francisco State. He's studying industrial engineering, and we could rebuild most of the things that burned down up in Paradise with hempcrete that doesn't burn, and we could study this and subsidize our farmers, and it's carbon neutral basically.
Yeah,
So
and
that's about it.
hempcrete is, for people who don't know what you're talking about, is basically concrete that is made with hemp as well as lime, right?
Correct. I mean, right on the coast, they have an old concrete plant there. I'm just thinking locally what we can do, and you can
and
also
hemp is of all the agricultural products out there, including trees, by the way. Hemp is the most rapid converter of sunlight into cellulose, into hydrocarbon plant material of all of the options that we have available to us. And
Definitely.
And the hemp seeds can be used to make diesel fuel, to make a kerosene or a diesel fuel. The hemp plant produces a very, very high quality, very strong cellulose fiber that makes great clothing. It's crazy that. And in fact, I mean, you go back and there's a conspiracy theory that I think probably has a lot of had a lot of truth to it. That back in the day, one of the reasons why hemp got outlawed was because marijuana was outlawed, and the reason why marijuana got outlawed was because the oil barons of the time, principally John Rockefeller, actually just wanted to outlaw hemp. But they had to jump through all these hoops of creating this whole, anti-Mexican racist trope, and then the, blacks with jazz and blah, 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 and we ended up with Reefer Madness, the movie and all this scare stuff. But the reason wasn't concern about people getting high on pot. The reason was they wanted to stop industrial hemp because it was competing with this early oil industry, and we need to get back to hemp because it's just, and Canada does this. I mean, this is being done all over the world, actually. But it's a major crop in Canada and has been for decades. It really should be here in the United States. Jeff, excellent point. Thank you for calling and making it. Joe in Cupertino, California. Hey, Joe, what's up?
Hey, hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I really enjoyed your conversation. It was about, 2 days ago you were talking about the virology, and I've been searching my house for this pamphlet I read about the doctor at Vanderbilt University who's designed this new type of immunization that's designed to change. It morphs into whatever this strain is that's coming, so the CDC doesn't have to guess. And apparently he's had some quite successful results, but that wasn't the reason I called. The reason I called was to just see if you'd caught Bernie on the TV or on the in Iowa yesterday. I thought it was a really great speech that he gave. He's now a Democrat, or running as a Democrat, on the ticket. And so what's really been bothersome to me is I watched this morning, as you did, with Joe Scarborough, and they were talking about capitalism.
I only caught about 10 minutes of the show, but it was that part of it. Yeah,
I had to change the channel. We should be not talking about it from a socialist or from a capitalist, but this is an American issue.
Well, and socialism and capitalism are not at odds. We have both in the United States. There are people who are pure capitalists. Paris Hilton, she was born rich. She lives off her investments. She's a capitalist. Capitalists are people who live off capital. They make their money with money. Most of us are workers. Some of us are entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own little business, and sometimes I take a paycheck, and there are some months when I don't take a paycheck. In fact, there have been several months in the last year where I didn't. And that's just what you do because we're building our business. We wanted to put a time delay unit in for our, a obscenity filter for TV, and so I set aside a paycheck for a while in order to pay for it. That's what you do. But that doesn't make me a capitalist. I don't live off my capital. In fact, my investments have lost me money this year rather than the other way around. So, and similarly, a socialist isn't somebody who wants the government to own and run everything and all the businesses. You know, socialism is well, anyhow, an end of rant.
I just wanted to comment before you let me go.
Yeah.
I'm very concerned about this anti-Semitism comment. I mean, we're trying to elect the first Jewish president in the United States. And I don't think that this comment that she's made is inappropriate. I think that we should listen to her. She probably has more to offer than, well, what apparently Steny Hoyer is willing to put up with.
Well,
So
Bernie and Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren have all come out in defense of Representative Omar.
Okay. But we want to be really careful about throwing that term around because I don't think that it's meant for her. I think it's meant to get Bernie out of the race. I just think that that's what they're trying to suggest, indirectly or otherwise. That, you know,
I don't
we
think
don't
so.
want to Jews. I don't think.
I don't think so. I think this is just the a level of hyperreactivity that I think you would understand if your people had lost 5 million in the previous generation, or 6 million as a consequence of the Holocaust, you know. So I'm not. I even have a hard time criticizing the critics. Because you know, this is I think it's a good thing that the conversation is actually happening. But you know, yeah, we have to be very careful of the use of that term. Joe, thanks for the call. Fred in Los Angeles. Hey, Fred, what's up? Thanks for watching us on YouTube.
You're welcome. First of all, with regards to hemp, I just have to comment on this since you were talking about it a little bit earlier. There was also a possible conspiracy theory that Chandler, and I don't know which one it was, from the LA Times, was for getting rid of hemp, making it illegal, because he had just invested in a forest for paper for his newspaper.
Now, I've heard that one too, and only I've heard it being attributed to who's the guy who built the William Randolph Hearst. That Hearst owned, had bought a bunch of forests to provide paper for his newspapers, and he was concerned about the competition of hemp. I think that's probably a weaker argument because there wasn't that huge a price differential in terms of making paper out of it. But you know, there is no alternative to oil, and so the idea that John Rockefeller was concerned about it makes a lot more sense to me, Fred.
That wasn't why I called. What I called about was hydrogen.
Yeah.
I saw a couple of YouTubes regarding Hyundai and their hydrogen car, and they were letting people use it who could write about it, and they talked about the same problem with stations.
Yeah.
And the only issue, like electrical. And I saw something else on about Lake Tahoe, and it occurred to me that if they go to the point of renting these cars before selling them, put them into rental fleets, and made a point like the the oil companies did, of putting up stations.
Yeah.
These would be much more acceptable.
Yeah, and hydrogen stations, by the way, are a lot easier to put out than a gasoline station, because with a gas station, you've got to continually bring gasoline to the gas station by truck and refill it. Whereas you could have a hydrogen refilling station that literally has nothing more than water coming to it. All it would have to do is be hooked up to the local water main. If it had a large enough solar collector associated with it so that it was getting electricity from the sun, you run a current through that water and that produces hydrogen off the anode and oxygen off the cathode, as I recall. And you simply, you know, collect the hydrogen that's coming from the one pole, and you let the oxygen just go into the atmosphere from the other pole, and you know, and fill the tank of the refill station there. Might be a little slower. You might want to hook it up to the local power grid so that it could do it more rapidly. But basically, you don't have to, you know, have a truck going around refilling hydrogen fueling stations, just like the electric refueling stations, as it were, that now in Los Angeles, for example, particularly in Santa Monica, you know, they've just got them in parking places on the public streets, you know, where you can just plug your car in, and it's just hooked up to the same electric source as the street lights are. So,
well, the one issue with regarding the water is what are you going to do when there are water shortages, either through drought or through global warming or whatever.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be potable water, or at least that's my understanding of it, that that electrolysis typically does not, break down anything other than the water. So if it was doing it with storm drain water, if it was doing it with runoff water, something like that, I mean, that might work, although there may be problems of the things getting gummed up over time or whatever. I'm not a hydrogen fuel expert or maven or whatever I just think it's cool that we could have ways to refill our vehicles, and Louise and I are experiencing this in real time right now with this plug-in electric hybrid car that we bought. It's just so cool being able to just plug in a car someplace and know that no truck is having to haul fossil fuels all over the country.
I know you're finishing up, but my point was that the auto companies need to invest in these.
Yeah, amen. I agree with you, Fred.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Yes, and the auto companies should invest in it. And Tesla, by the way, is investing in refueling stations, electric stations now for their cars. And welcome back. Manny in Lexington, Kentucky. Hey, Manny, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. How are you?
I am great, but I'll get better. How about you?
I'm great, too. Boy, it's wonderful to watch you every day.
Thank you.
I just want to remind you, Tom, I believe it was Mark Twain that said, it's easier to fool people than it is to convince people that they've been fooled.
Yep.
And that is so relevant today. I have a couple of Republican friends that I golf with and that kind of thing. And I'm always asking them, why do you guys get so mad when we talk about, any kind of politics or any kind of current events or whatever? And, and they do. They turn red as a beet and, just start spouting off all this stuff about Hillary's emails and Jesus Christ and, everything in the world. And I just I don't know.
I think Manny, if you're asking that as a not as a rhetorical question, but as a legitimate question, I'll give you a legitimate answer. Fox News makes money selling outrage. If you watch Fox News for any given 15 minutes, you're gonna hear 2 or 3 segments in that 15 minutes that, if you believe what they're saying, really piss you off. They really upset you.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised if your Fox News viewing friends get angry when you raise any of these issues, because they've been primed for it. They've been trained for it. They've been indoctrinated for it by Rupert Murdoch. But, this billionaire is making money on this.
Well, you're exactly right, Tom. And, I'm going to let you go. But thank you so much for taking my call. And, have a great day. I love watching you. I'm going to go back to it.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Manny. Thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. Judy in Pine, Colorado, watching Free Speech. Hey, Judy, what's up?
Hey, on Representative Omar, she didn't recognize, she didn't make the statement that it was about AIPAC or Israel. She tried to keep it general.
Yes.
But it was not anti-Semitic. But now we have a law on the books that is cutting into the First Amendment.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about the resolution that they passed in Congress this morning or yesterday afternoon?
No, I'm talking about the law that was put, if I remember correctly, put with the bill that had to pass bill that bans any government worker from, on their own time, speaking out against the way the Palestinians are being
right. You're talking about the anti-BDS stuff.
Correct.
With the boycott,
Correct. That is now a law.
and something.
It is also the law in 26 states, including Colorado, which Hickenlooper signed.
Yeah. I agree with Congressman Mark Pocan. I think it's fundamentally opposed to the First Amendment.
Calling for the resignation, the censure, or anything else of Stephen King, who has been anti-Semitic statements for years, and yet nobody says anything. Israel doesn't say anything, and
he's a Republican.
It's okay if Republicans do it, but if it's a woman that's a progressive, oh my God, look out! Republicans are going to make sure Democrats speak out against it.
Right, and the cherry on the top is that she was also Muslim. I mean, you know, the icing is that she's a woman of color, and you know, and the starting point that she's a woman. I mean, you add all that stuff together. Yeah, Judy, thank you very much for the call. I agree with you. We'll be back. It's 21 minutes past the hour. Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's you know, it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at ThomHartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Well, welcome back. Charles in Opelika, Florida, listening on Sirius XM. Hey, Charles, what's on your mind?
Hey, happy Friday, first of all.
Thank you. Back at you, Charles.
I got real disturbed watching Kristen Nielsen, and then with most of her answers. But I think what really made me sad, and I just haven't been able to get it out of my mind, was when I forgot what the representative was.
It was Lauren Underwood. She is a freshman representative from the suburban Chicago area, and she's absolutely brilliant. I sat with her and her father at dinner last week in Chicago. She's just an extraordinary woman.
Right. Well, my question
and member of Congress.
Has it resonated? I mean, I know we have so much news and so much stuff about Manafort and everything, but has it resonated with the American people that she asked about the trauma being done to these kids? And the very first answer out of Nielsen was, we already knew that they would face some sort of trauma with the journey.
Right.
And I just think that blew my mind. You already knew these kids was going to be under some sort of trauma, and yet and still you proceeded to go ahead and still separate them and make it even worse.
Yeah.
I just think this person does not have a heart. These people don't have a heart. I don't care what they come on television, and Trump want to sit up here and talk about how Cohen lied about a pardon. These people lie every single day to our face. They are destroying our country. They are destroying our lives because we can't get Medicare.
Right.
I mean, now the International Women's Day, you would think that women, even in America, would have equal pay. Well, if we had equal pay, I've told you this before, I think when the ladies retire, their Social Security check would be even better.
Yeah. And Republicans for 50 years have been blocking the Equal Rights Amendment, which is one sentence that says that you can't discriminate on the basis of sex. It is mind-boggling. Charles, just to add to your outrage, the Democrats in Congress have subpoenaed or have requested. There's these reports that over 5,000 of these immigrant children have been sexually assaulted in these for-profit and some not-for-profit, although they're making a whole pile of money and paying their executives lots of money. These children's prisons that have been springing up, these privatized children's prisons, over 5,000 cases of sexual assault against these children. And they have asked the people who are running these organizations to come before Congress and testify about this issue. And the people have said, no, we're not going to do it.
Well, we need to subpoena them. We need to bring them back.
Yeah, amen. And
we need to bring her back.
And I think they will. I really do. Charles, thank you. I share your outrage. Colleen in Louisville, Kentucky. Hey, Colleen, what's up?
Hi, Tom. There's a whole bunch to comment on, of course. especially since Mitch McConnell has just said he's going to block the H.R. 1 bill in the Senate
well,
for
of course
a vote.
he will. But we have just 1 minute, Colleen. What do you want to focus on?
Well, I want to correct several comments made by your last caller yesterday in talking about child brides in Idaho and that it's happening there because the Mormon Church is dominant there, and I am a Mormon. And, in fact, Utah has 55% Mormon population as opposed to 19% in Idaho, and this practice is totally denounced by the church. I think she may be mixing it up with a splinter group off of the Mormon Church, the FLDS,
right,
which is a fundamental sect,
right, which is
and
still
they practice
polygamous.
a lot of child brides.
Yeah.
So I just want to put that out there because it's not accurate that the Mormon Church condones that.
Thank you. And I agree with you. I'd be astonished if they did. I think this is more. These were all Republicans. All these guys who voted this thing down, and to end child brides in Idaho. And I just think it's Republican misogyny. Republican men who have no interest in defending the rights of women, whether they're 13 or whether they're 35. Colleen,
wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, there you go. Colleen, thanks a lot for the call, and thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. It's coming up on 28 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Friday right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Taking back the media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Thom Hartmann here with you. Stick around. We'll be right back. And we still have a $60,000 match from Mike in San Francisco. We sucked up $12,000 of it yesterday, and thank you if you called in yesterday for that. But there's a lot of it left. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Let's keep this network going. Let's keep this show on the air. Let's keep everything working here on Free Speech TV. It really, I keep saying this, I don't think I can say it enough. It's a really critical time in America. It's a really critical time for American media. And frankly, the importance of progressive media. So I don't know if you saw the recent article by Jane Mayer in the New Yorker about how Fox News and the Republican Party and the Trump machine are all like this. I mean, they're just like that. They've got these three outliers, Brett Baier, Chris Wallace, and Shep Smith, who occasionally just do straight news. But even then, the topics that they'll do straight news about are tightly constrained by this Foxosphere, by Rupert Murdoch, the guy that former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd called a cancer on democracy. That Rupert Murdoch, runs this company with an iron fist and says, it's like, they knew, for example, that Trump had an affair with a porn star and paid her off to cover it up. And they knew this at the same time that WikiLeaks was releasing Hillary's emails. And what did Fox choose to talk about? Well, they never once met. I mean, last week it broke that Fox knew this story, buried it. And then when the woman who had the reporter at Fox who had found this out, when she dug a little deeper and found out that not only had Fox buried the story, but so had the National Enquirer, that they were both engaged in catch and kill, she was demoted and eventually quit, and or was fired, whatever. And I mean, this is just how Fox rolls. It's a propaganda machine run by a billionaire. There is nothing like that on the left side of the dial. Nothing. Even the so-called left-wing, cable TV network, MSNBC, is full of Republicans and right-wing Democrats. Where else are you going to find a genuinely progressive message? I know of no place. And yet, if you're looking for a hardcore right-wing message, they've got 5 different television networks now running on digital platforms, like Glenn Beck's network, and I'm forgetting the names of all of them. Julio is on a couple of them. And as well as Fox News on all the cable systems. It's mind-boggling. And they're all funded by right-wing billionaires who are promoting this because they want their taxes cut, they want their companies deregulated so they can spew more poison into our air and water and thus make more profit and continue to screw their workers by keeping out unions and keeping the minimum wage low. It's crazy. We've got to support Free Speech TV. You have to support Free Speech TV. Please. This network literally does not exist if you don't call 877-378-8669 and make a contribution. Even if it's $10 a month for the next whatever it may be, it's all up to you, whatever amount. With a $20 gift, though, we've got a new bumper sticker. It's just started a couple days ago. It's called Jesus Was a Socialist. And they're flying off the shelves, as they say. With a $60 gift, you get the Free Speech TV sticker pack, a collection of kind of cool stickers. With a $72 gift, you get a copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which will be out in June. We're hoping we can get them shipped to you in May. Well, no promises, but June for sure. And with an autographed bookplate in them. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. With a $200 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $360 gift, you get all of the above. With a $500 gift, we're putting together an online webinar about dealing with anxiety and trauma. With a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the third hour of the program and watch the show being done right here in our humble little studio. And I'll take you to lunch afterwards. And typically we get 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 or 10 people together. And so you'll have an opportunity as well to meet a few other Free Speech TV viewers, which is always it's actually really interesting. Fascinating dynamics. So anyhow, those are the premiums, but the premiums are, they're the icing on the cake. The real cake, as it were. I mean, the substance of all this is calling 877-378-8669 and saying, yes, I want to help Free Speech TV continue to be a strong and viable part of the American media landscape. I can tell you, I am on a bunch of big radio stations. I'm on, our shows on YouTube and Facebook Live and all these other places. And yet, a substantial portion of our calls, at least a third of our calls, are coming in from Free Speech TV viewers. And we've got a very large measured audience over on the radio side that's in the millions. So Free Speech TV is doing really good. I mean, we are catching an audience with this network. And we need to, and especially in the red states, where people don't have access to cable TV, and so they're on Dish and Direct, and Dish and Direct are the principal carriages. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Your donation will be doubled up to $60,000. Please call now.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
The majority. Welcome back to Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Mick in Santa Cruz, California. Hey, Mick, what's on your mind today?
Oh, thank you, Tom, for taking my call. I'd like to brainstorm some with you. It's not a rant or a rave, it's a brainstorm.
Okay.
I want to suggest, first off, in the interest of Carl Jung, that the Democratic and Republican Party change their symbols from the donkey and an elephant to what Cory Booker has brought up, and I had thought of before, Cory, and that is that we rename the parties. One, the Party of Light, which is the mantra for that party would be, if you don't want it done to you, don't do it to others.
Right.
And the Party of Darkness, which we already know is motivated by greed and money. So it would seem that most parties would, in fact, I just listened to your library thing about rules, and I think the golden rule is one of those rules that nobody would object to on either side.
You would think. So, Mick, you're suggesting that the Democratic Party should consider itself the party of light and that we should all consider the Republican Party the party of darkness. In 2000, when George W. Bush took over the Republican Party after he got the nomination as he was running for president, the official GOP logo was altered, was changed, so that the stars went from the traditional American flag 5-pointed star with the top, that is sort of like Da Vinci's man. There's the top point is the head. The two side points of the star are the outstretched arms. The two bottom points of the star are the two outspread legs. You're familiar with what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
And they flipped that upside down so that it became the symbol, the satanic symbol, the historic, classic satanic symbol of the goat, where the two things at the top are the horns of the goat, the two things on the side are the ears of the goat head, and the thing at the bottom now, the star on the Republican logo, is now sitting on a single point, and that's the chinny chin chin of the goat, right? And so in 2000, the Republican Party adopted the satanic star literally as its logo. There are 3 of them on their logo. They're printed all over the place. You can see it on their website everywhere. And I have been asking Republicans for years, why did you put satanic symbology on your logo in 2000? And I haven't gotten an answer. Maybe you have come across it, Mick, that back in 2000, the Republicans decided that they were the party of darkness.
Well, then they self-named themselves.
Yeah. There you go.
I'm really thinking that most of what I hear in the rants and raves are the injustices being done to one another. And to me, if they could focus on something that is simple for everyone to comprehend, then we could move forward and get past the bickering. Yeah, I'm with you. And the only problem that I would say with light and darkness is also the subtle and in many cases unconscious racial overtones to that. But Mick, I get your point. I absolutely get it. Thanks a lot for the call. John in San Francisco. Hey, John, thanks for listening to 910 AM. What's up?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. Say, I've been researching a little bit online the definition of socialism, and they all say the exact same thing, that it's I'm reading from Webster's, a theory of or system of ownership of the means of production and distribution by society rather than by individuals. And
that's one of the definitions, John, not the only one.
Well, the second one says a political movement for establishment and a system. Anyway, I just wanted to point out that, I'm a total Bernie supporter, but I'm not, and I studied in Denmark and lived there. And I don't agree with that definition. What I do agree with is a safe and sane, well-regulated society that the progressive Democrats might use to embrace the preamble to the Constitution as a raison d'etre, a reason for existence. And that's to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity.
Right, you just read the preamble to the Constitution.
Exactly, and that's my thinking is, and I've been calling for a couple of years about this, about the lack of branding and messaging, and I would think that if we hung this on a banner as progressive Democrats, and then any time there's any issues, there it is. That's what we are. Right. We are the 51 words in the preamble to the Constitution, and that trumps the Second Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and so on. Guns and private property and due process. The Fifth Amendment that the man in the White House is going to be requesting, hopefully soon. That if we embrace the preamble to the Constitution and just move towards securing a safe and sane society, I think that will settle all arguments, and we can move on, and then not go on to the socialist angle, because by definition it's not. When I looked it up on Wikipedia,
John, I totally get what you're saying, and here's the problem, or the point. Neither I nor anybody I know who is on the progressive side of the Democratic Party has been enthusiastic about calling ourselves socialists for the very reasons that you're talking about, and also because pretty much anybody over 50 reacts to that word really, really poorly. But Bernie has called himself a democratic socialist his entire political career, and frankly, even if Bernie wasn't in the race, the Republicans have been labeling everything the Democrats have been trying to do since 1933 as socialist. They labeled Social Security as socialist. In fact, they said the use of the word social in the name proved it was socialism. They labeled Medicare. Ronald Reagan recorded a record for the American Medical Association. They sent millions out. It was called Operation Coffee Cup. Millions of them to Republican women across the country, asking them to invite everybody in the neighborhood over for coffee and to listen to this 20-minute rant by Governor Reagan or actor Reagan, I think back then. This was in '67. It was before he was governor. And that. Literally everything Democrats do is going to be called socialism. We need to get, they're already doing it. Donald Trump is doing it. The Fox News is doing it. Right-wing hate radio is doing it. And so we're going to have to deal with this word, whether we want to use it or not, because our opponents are going to use it against us and are doing so, in fact, right now as we speak. So we have to deal with this fundamental reality, John.
Okay, well, I just suggest that we embrace the progressive Democratic approach, and when anybody argues socialism, we bring up exactly what you've been saying for years. Do you like your socialist highways, your socialist education, your socialist police and fire, and so on?
Right.
And then drop it, and just move on.
Yep, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be frankly that simple. Well said, John. Thank you for the call. Tim in Beaverton, Oregon. Hey, Tim, what's up?
Yeah, I've been watching your show. I appreciate your show. It's refreshing to actually listen to something that makes sense nowadays and what's happening with all the media.
Bless you,
Tim. With this Jesus was a socialist, I've got something that's more relevant, more current. I think for the 2020 campaign, the Republicans should put out bumper stickers that say "Make America White Again." I think that would be probably more relevant.
With the Trump-Pence logo.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Here's the sad thing. If you or I were to produce a bumper sticker that looked like it was a Trump-Pence bumper sticker, with their official logo on it, that said, "Make America White Again," and we took those to a gun show or to a Trump rally, I'll bet we'd sell them out.
Oh, absolutely. That's just what I was going to say to you. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
And you were talking about Kraft today with this nonsense. One of his best buddies is Rush Limbaugh. Can you imagine the conversations those two have together?
Oh,
Do you think Limbaugh, when he's on the radio, is soliciting donations to keep his radio show going? The guy's a multimillionaire, which basically tells you what's going on in this country.
Yeah. No, the right has an infrastructure to support their media folks and to own their own media. And the left has nothing that even resembles that. Tim, excellent points all. Thank you. Taxi driver number 12, you're listening to AM 1260 in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You're on the air.
Actually, yes. Formerly taxi
driver number 12. Okay.
There's no more cab company because it was put out of business. Anyway, I would like to. Okay, you totally caught me off guard. I was across the room. There's a wonderful example of democracy in action going on in New Mexico right now because liberal Democrat governor Michelle Lujan Grisham is trying to get signed this bill, Senate and House Bill number 8, which is a background check bill for all firearm sales, and the entire state is rebelling against her. 24 of the 33 counties have signed Second Amendment sanctuary county resolutions with the county commission and the sheriffs.
Yeah, a variation on that is happening in Washington State.
Exactly.
So I don't understand, number 12, I don't understand why anybody would object to background checks.
Because it leads to registration. No one wants it. Because if someone, I can't give a gun to my brother. A father can't give a gun to their son. And it's basically imported Michael Bloomberg legislation.
Well, if your brother or your son was somebody who had a history of domestic violence, you shouldn't give a gun to them.
Okay, well, that's fine. But here's the deal.
But the only way we'd find out is with a background check.
Well, I will do with my private property as I so choose. No New Mexican wants this. 30 of the 33 sheriffs have expressed support for the Second Amendment sanctuary counties, and 24 county commissions have passed Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. And she still wants to sign the thing. This is AstroTurf legislation coming from Michael Bloomberg.
Okay, that was a mouthful. Number 12, thank you for the call. Thanks for the heads up. Fascinating. We probably need to get somebody on from New Mexico and find out what the heck's going on in Santa Fe. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
In about 4 minutes, we're going to check in with Talk Media News with Luke Vargas and find out what's going on in the world today. We bumped it back an hour. Stick around. And welcome back. James in Orlando, West Virginia. Hey, James, thanks for watching us on Free Speech. What's up?
Hello, Mr. Hartman. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
I appreciate you. I wanted to bring out the point that no Republican asked Cohen the other day about any questions about Trump and the things that he's been doing. And my personal opinion is I think every one of those Republicans that's protecting Trump should be brought up on obstruction of justice. That's just my opinion. But another thing I'd like to do...
Well, hang on just a second, James. I disagree with you because I don't think you can charge somebody with obstruction of justice for failing to do their job. They weren't explicitly telling Michael Cohen he should not be testifying. They weren't threatening him. I mean, that was done by Congressman Matt Gaetz, who was standing in the room staring at him, trying to intimidate him, and who, frankly, I think should be in jail for that. But that was not being done by the Republicans on the committee who were asking questions. They were simply not doing their job. They were tap dancing around the issue.
Okay. The other thing I'd like to do is send out a call to all the intelligence people in the United States. I'm a Vietnam veteran. Our American flag is flying upside down, and you know what that means.
Yeah.
If you have any kind of evidence that you can send Mueller to help him out, please do so. We need your help.
There you go.
Thank you.
It's an American crisis. Thank you, James. Michael in Snohomish, Washington. Hey, Michael, thanks for listening to KBCS. What's up?
Hi. I just had something you were talking about, hydrogen fueling stations.
Mm-hmm.
I saw on PBS, Alan Alda, I think in Scientific American, how in Iceland, they're just putting the refueling stations right at the existing gas stations.
Makes perfect sense.
All you need is water and electricity.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
And this would give the off-grid people, the preppers or the villages in Africa, all they would need is rainwater and solar cells, and they could have power to run their tractors or whatever.
That's correct. And it doesn't, I don't know exactly how much electricity it takes, but it doesn't take a whole lot of water to produce, a combustible amount of hydrogen, because water, the hydrogen in water is super dense compared to atmospheric hydrogen.
Yeah, they could use the watering hole that had cholera, or their well is salt water instead of fresh water. They could use the brine.
Yeah.
So they could use all kinds of things. Save the rainwater for drinking and use the cholera water for
There you go.
fuel.
All kinds of possibilities. Michael, thank you. Excellent one. Donald in Denver, Colorado, watching Free Speech. Donald, we have a little less than a minute. A quick one. This will be our last call for the day.
Yes, Tom, thank you for taking my call. Do you hear me?
I do.
Okay, yes, I want to talk about Venezuela. Donald Trump talks about this wall to keep the brown people out. If he goes ahead with Bolton's dream of overthrowing the government down there, you're going to have 1 million dark-skinned brown people like me. I'm 75-year-old Latino. I was born and raised here in the United States. And you're going to have 1 million people more at the wall. So this interfering in our Latin countries on the South, we have no business over there. The reason they're all over at our doors is because we've been overthrowing those governments for years and putting in dictators, and the corporations here are just turning everything upside down there.
Yep.
Sending death squads to kill. We've been hearing this for years and years.
Yep, I agree. It was the damage that Ronald Reagan did in the 80s with his death squads and his Contras in Nicaragua and Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. In those countries is the genesis of the so-called crisis on our border right now. Donald, very well said. Thank you very much. Luke Vargas is up next. Stick around. Hey, over at ThomHartmann.com, we've got some really cool stuff. A lot of people don't realize that we produce a daily newsletter, and Sue puts we call it Sue's Daily Stack on there, which is literally a link to every story that I've talked about in the show. So all the research is right there. It's free. We don't share or sell our subscriber list. It's there's just it's there. It's there for you. And it's over at ThomHartmann.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter. You also can get my big picture take of the day, which is exclusively over at our website at ThomHartmann.com, as well as links to our videos, the book reports we typically do every day, all this stuff and more. It's all there at ThomHartmann.com. So check it out and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll really enjoy it and appreciate it and find a lot of value there. We put a lot of work into this stuff. And you'll find it all right there on our website at thomhartmann.com. And be sure to check out the newsletter and sign up for it. It's great.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
So let's check in with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world today. This report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Loving What You Do. Ellen Ratner's new book. On the line with us is Luke Vargas, the chief foreign correspondent for Talk Media News, calling in from UN headquarters in New York. You can check out his 2-minute podcast every day by plugging Luke Vargas into wherever you get your podcasts. Luke, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Bloomberg is saying that Trump has adopted a cost plus 50 strategy in negotiations with nations where we have military bases, like Germany, Japan, South Korea. What's he talking about?
This is like taking the complex negotiations that a country like the U.S. would be engaged in with dozens of other countries, the really delicate talks with, in most cases, our allies about how to kind of help each other out, and boiling all of that down to a Trumpian sort of catchphrase, a strategy, which is being called cost plus 50, which is instead of saying, hey, this is what it costs for us to be in South Korea, let's calculate what kind of benefit the South Korean, public gets from our military presence there, our deterrent effect. We'll see how wealthy the country is, and we'll just sort of work out something that feels equitable. The Trump administration is apparently, and this is coming from the White House and making a lot of people at State and Defense very uncomfortable, saying cost plus 50. The host country would have to pay the full cost of housing all of the American soldiers plus a 50% convenience fee, and they're not calling it that, but in the Bloomberg piece, it was referred to by State Department officials as the privilege of hosting the United States, end quote. And if you tally this strategy up, we're not talking about incremental increases in the costs for, borne by our allies to host us. We're talking 5 to 6 times more expensive. So we're talking, taking a $200 million bill in one country, making it $1 billion line item potentially. And I think there's one stream of thought in reaction to this that, okay, this is a trial balloon from the administration. This is what Trump really wants. He wants to put it out there. He wants to see if the base gobbles up this notion that, the tough tone he's used with NATO, stick it to him, make him pay. On the other hand, though, I think there is deep dissatisfaction within the rank and file of the U.S. government that they're being asked to turn to allies and say something that is, again, there's an expectation the U.S. is seeking budget cuts at the UN. We want NATO countries to pay more for their defense, but we're not asking them something, to quadruple or times by 5 or 6 their total bill. And that I think maybe the reason we're getting such good reporting from Bloomberg here is a lot of sources within the State Department and military think this is absolutely outlandish and insulting for allies who, in many cases, don't love hosting the U.S. I mean, they get some benefit for it, but we should be sensitive that our presence in a lot of countries is a complex political dynamic there, and this cost plus.
Well, and in many cases, our presence in other countries is to use as staging for other things. Sure. I mean, our bases in Germany is used to stage for the for all the stuff that we're doing in the Middle East, for example. There may be a bright side to this, though, Luke. If you look at the history of empires tend to collapse. Countries that have literally spread themselves across the known world. And there are 6 or 8, solid examples of this that you can look at in history. Empires tend to collapse one of 2 ways. Either they overextend themselves and they go down in flames in wars on multiple fronts, which is what happened to Hitler, or they go through an attrition kind of process and they slowly decompress. And this is what happened to the United Kingdom, coming back, and to France as well. And, a century earlier. And, there's a big debate about whether the United States empire should be, not collapsing, but shrinking. I mean, we've got over 700 military bases around the world, and even a lot of, gung-ho folks in the military are saying that may be a couple hundred more than we should have. So if this leads to a conversation or even a process about reducing America from being a worldwide empire to simply being a nation with strong national integrity that protects its national interests, that might not be a bad thing.
Yeah, and I would encourage your listeners. I did an interview on this several years ago with a guy named David Vine, who wrote a great book called Base Nation, and talks about how the U.S. military footprint overseas really kind of in many ways undermines American interests. So I think there's something there. I guess if I were to sort of be in the administration and pushing a policy, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for more compensation in some of these cases, particularly when hosting troops in a certain country diminishes America's moral standing. I would say, having the fleets in Bahrain is sort of a stain on America's choice of allies.
Yeah, it's a patriarchal dictatorship
country. So if you went to a country like that and said, look, I mean, we're having some qualms here. I know it's useful for you, useful for us, but how about you pay up? So, and if they decided not to, maybe we would say, okay, well, let's have this be a little bit more meritocratic. But I think there is a fear that in a way that is not really built around long-term U.S. interests, we're just sort of taking...
No, I'm not saying Trump is doing anything right here. I mean, this is obviously the most stupid, simplistic, this is the schooler movement, right? We want to see Trump's proof that he graduated from the 5th grade because we're doubting it. But there may be, it may produce a conversation that actually is long overdue. Luke Vargas,
I think so.
Thank you so much, Luke.
Bye-bye.
Good talking with you. I hope you have a great weekend, Luke. And thank you for being with us today. It's been a fascinating week. I hope you have a great weekend. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires you. Get out there, get active, tag, you're it. We'll see you on Monday.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
We say fight back! We say fight!